I mean, I'm new to the, yeah, got it, yeah. I'm new to this course, so could you maybe just as a brief summary of what you guys do and is it the, I guess the end of what the first year or the only the year do the only year that you're doing? It'd be great to hear from you.
Okay, so this is a new course. It's a summer class. So okay, am I starting at the right place? So no, I don't. Okay, so this course is part of a pilot project. So maybe this is new for the students too. So this is part of a pilot project. We had a grant from the from the government to build courses to actually teach audio description and subtitling through respeaking. So there's no such thing right now in French in Montreal. So there's something in Ryerson
Oh,
University. You probably know about what
I do,
Deborah
yeah,
Peltz created over there. So we kind of
I do.
trying to do the same thing, but for francophones here in Quebec. So we had
Yeah,
two courses. One of them was audio description with Claudette and two other teachers, and also
yeah,
subtitle with respeaking with speech recognition technology. And this is a third class of the three courses we wanted to actually, tried. So vous êtes des cobayes, so we're trying things on them. So this is more like a theoretical course. So the goal was really to talk about audio description, a little bit of subtitling and accessibility and how it could be incorporated into or the next generation of
fantastic.
filmmakers or people working in the
This is
cinema.
brilliant. That's
So,
brilliant. How long is this course, guys? How long are you? Is it the end of the course now, or
so next week it's their last week and they have to present an AD. They did, or well, they're doing it right now. So they will have to present an AD. They already did one. And also a critical reflection on the course, because this is really new to talk about accessibility and cinema study is brand new here. So it was really an introduction to all this new world of
that's
accessibility,
fantastic.
especially for cinema,
That's brilliant.
for dance, theater, live events. We talked about
Mm.
it earlier this week.
Okay, that sounds brilliant. It sounds to me like similar to what's been done in Uruguay now. And whenever I talk to my PhD student in Uruguay and a couple of PhD students I've got there, they always say, "Oh, we're just starting." It's almost in an apologetic manner. Saying, we're just beginning. We have very little here." And but the thing is, this is very pioneering. What you're doing, guys. I mean, I can see how you're looking at your students as if they were guinea pigs. But well, in a way it's because this is very pioneering because in countries with a longer tradition of access, I mean, you guys are dealing with French there, right? This is what you're doing, French. In countries with a long tradition of access, like Spain and especially the UK, the establishment of standard and standardized access is so big, so powerful, then the way it was set up is the way it is. Introducing any kind of modification into that becomes very, very difficult because they already know how they're doing things and they're doing by the guidelines. So did you guys have a chance to play the film at all, Caroline?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
watched it this morning.
Okay. So for me, for example, there's when my distribution comp when not my when the distribution company that kind of owns the film says, okay, we need to do audio description, and I send them this, they said, what is this? This is not following the guidelines. We need another voice. You cannot be talking over your film and all these things, because you do things in a certain way. You don't do things in that way. Um, so it's good that in countries where things are starting, they're already starting, kind of springing out, not just in an alternative manner, but also coming from different areas, not just from, you know, access for me has always come from the world of translation studies. We study translation, then we do access. But in Uruguay, they study from film, for example. And that's brilliant because things change. And you see, Uruguay, the government in Uruguay, it's funding access, but is giving filmmakers the money for access at the beginning of a project. And that is fantastic. In pre-production, you get your funding for access. And that's the thing. If you are, I don't know, tell me one of the names here of your students.
Let's say Maxon next to me.
Maxon, is that Maxon? Is that how you? Okay, so if Maxon, for example, is going to be the access person for a film, the thing is, he would normally, typically, he will be contacted in any other country at the end of a process. Film is finished. You know, we got his contact. And we say, can you work with us for audio description? Yes, fantastic. But he has no connection with me as a filmmaker. Nothing. Complete disconnection. I don't even know that he's doing that. And he has no access to me. He can ask no questions, nothing. In Uruguay, because I contact him because I have to pay him, I have to establish the contract at the beginning. Then Maxan is going to go back to me and say, well, okay, so when's the film going to be finished? And I'll say in half a year. But because we established the contract already, I can send him the script, right? I can send him the pre-production material. And Maxan has a look at it and says, oh, wow, that's interesting. Look, the script has a lot of descriptions of images already, right? So the images that he is going to be describing have already been described by maybe the scriptwriter. They may change when you film, but you know, he's in touch with a film, he's in touch with a plan, and he's in touch with me. So we establish a relationship from the beginning. And that relationship is probably going to lead to something else. At some point, Maxan will probably say, well, you know, why don't we contact someone who's blind and gives us a hand here as well? So then we have a blind advisor working with us, a consultant, you know, working with us. So the whole structure is different because it's funded at pre-production. And one more thing, there's more money for him as well, because in filmmaking, the money is at the beginning in the main budget of the film, right? If we come in late, you know, then there's nothing there. You know, where do we get the money from? Yep. So just to say that it's great that you've got this pioneering experience coming from different places, because that's what we need.
Yeah, no, it's really exciting. And last Monday, 2 days ago, we had people from Densité, and they do audio description for modern dance, contemporary dance for 2 years now.
Oh.
They are really, well, it was really inspiring. They were with one of their most, how do you say that? They have like about 30 to 40 spectators that are always going to those shows. And one of them was there, and she was talking about her experience. And the way the audio describer was explaining her process, it is also very different from cinema. When you have to describe dance and you have a lot of describe, and you have to describe so many moves, so many bodies, so many props. I mean, it's totally different from audio films or television. So, and it's really pioneer over there with the contemporary.
Okay. So, look, do you guys have access to a chat, to the Zoom chat? Can you read it at all, or?
Well, they will see what you are.
Okay, brilliant. Can you see this? AD for dance?
Yes,
you can see this that I've written? Okay. Look, this person I work with in Antwerp, she does a lot of work on AD for dance. She's a trainer, a scholar, and she does a lot of work. I'm writing articles with her. So if you need anything that is, and the articles are, they are theoretical, but they really cover experiences of actual, because she's an audio describer. She's what she calls herself as I think it's like that. A practice searcher, a practice, you know, a professional and a researcher. She's brilliant, and she's doing all sorts of really interesting stuff to do with AD and dance. And another person to follow in the UK, this one is Louise Fryer.
Yeah, I know her, and they know
her.
To read.
Oh, you do? Okay, brilliant. I've just I've just been in touch with her today, telling her about this class, and she was very excited because she didn't know anything like this was happening in Canada. So she sends her regards as well.
Right.
Yeah. So Colin, what do you think? Should we start with can I start with a like kind of a normal class, asking questions and showing things, and then we end up with a film? Is that
Go.
we end up with discussing the film?
Yeah, or you can do it as you wish.
Yeah.
This is a
Okay.
summer
Because
class, so it's really relaxed. You do it the way you want to do it.
brilliant. Okay. So let me show you a couple of things first, okay? And let's get a discussion going. So let's see. Just a second. Yeah. Going to share screen now. Sound. There. There. Hopefully now, at some point you'll see.
We're seeing something.
Yeah. I'm getting there with this. Okay, can you see an elephant?
We do, but there's something in front of it. There you
Still?
go.
I've taken it away. Okay,
Now it's
now
all
I'm
right.
going to. Brilliant. Video panel. Yeah, I can see you. Brilliant. Okay. So, um, you know, I was asked to talk in Rome a couple of weeks ago about media access in the era of AI, of chat GPT and what are we doing? And my students are all like, is there any point in studying translation if machines are going to translate better than us? And, okay, so these questions are like, right? I'll tell you about a film project, my next film project, in which I'm going to ask for your collaboration in Canada too. So let's not forget about that, and it's related to this. But anyway, let's start with from the beginning. So let me see if I've got everything I need. Yeah, I think so. So, okay, the elephant is there because of this English phrase. I don't know if in French it exists. The elephant in the room.
Yes,
Does
we
that exist
actually
in
translate this in French.
Okay. So that's what is our role nowadays, in all this area. Like I said, my students saying, should we have studied something else? Is our jobs are they going to be taken over by machines? It's a fair question. Okay, so now let's start from let's see. Do I
We
have
still
the right
have
one?
some rectangles
Yeah,
in front of your
let me
presentation.
let me move it away. Let's see if I can move it away. Just a second. This is the one. Yeah, it's coming. There we go. So hopefully now. Screen. Okay, I'm trying now.
Because I guess this is the zoom in front of the presentation.
Is it still there?
There's only two now instead of four rectangles.
Okay, let me see. Okay, maybe I can. Maybe these are the captions. I think. Let me turn the captions off. Hide captions. Is it just the one on the side now?
There's one on the top and one on the side, but I don't think it's gonna interfere with your presentation, so it doesn't really matter.
Okay, hopefully. Okay, so you can see the elephant now, right? Yeah. Do you remember this parable, this story in India, which was about how blind people were touching different parts of an elephant? And for them, it was just different. They didn't see the elephant. So for them, this is a brush. I'm touching a snake. I'm touching a trunk. I'm touching a rope. But no one gets the full view of the elephant, right? This has been used before like that. Now, let's apply it to axis. Let's think of the elephant as media axis. Yeah. So if the elephant is media axis, then we look at it depending on where we come from. So, Caroline, your background is in film studies or is in translation?
It's in
Film
literature
studies.
studies, both.
Exactly. Well, mine is in, I mean, I do a little bit of filmmaking, but mine is in translation studies. So I come from here. Yeah. And I see access, or I was taught access as this. You see? So for me, access is translation. And what does that mean? It means that I am in depth indebted to the original. You see what I mean? I'm always thinking, oh, the original, am I portraying the original properly, accurately, objectively? You know what I mean? Are my subtitles accurate? Is my description objective and precise? You see what I mean? It's always like that. Now, if I was coming from filmmaking, as you see this guy at the bottom of the trunk of the, yeah, then I would probably think of it as creation. And my PhD students, which give me this refreshing view from Uruguay, they don't even bother with the original too much, because for them, you know what they're doing, guys? They're just making a film, and from the beginning, they're making it accessible, you know? So for them, access is creation. There's no original. Yeah, there's many originals if you like. Plus, let's also question the idea of the original. And let me come back to that at the end of the class, okay? This whole idea of the original is a very tricky one because, what is the, I mean, you will have heard, students are very young, right, Colin? But, Apocalypse Now, for example, okay? What is the original version of Coppola's Apocalypse Now? Is it the 1970 something version? Is it the Redux version? Is it the 75-minute whatever version? I mean, we don't know, do we? So the accessible version is just one more version. Now, look at the guy at the bottom. The bottom comes from architecture. How do you see access? Well, inclusive design, right? And this is what I'm interested in these days, which, we need to get this input. If you are a disability scholar, a disability or critical disability studies scholar, how do you see access? Well, for them, it's often a matter of justice. Yeah. And this is not just a word. It means a lot. And I want to dwell on that. But first, let me talk about where I come from here. Yeah. What happens when you see access as translation? Then, well, this is what happens, You've got guidelines, right? I mean, I worked on the Louisa Fryer and I actually visited Netflix in LA, and they asked us to revamp, to redo their AD guidelines. And we gave, we gave them research evidence to back up all the different norms that they have and stuff like that. But they're guidelines, right? And they often talk about how you have to describe objectively. But then I ask you, what is an objective description? I mean, if I give you the elephant and you describe it, Colin, and Maxan describes it, you're not going to come up with the same description. You're trying to be objective, but Colin, you're describing it from your point of view. And if I describe it, my description is going to be a description coming from someone who is 42 years old, messy hair, who's me. And I describe it as I see it, right? You know how sometimes they say films are not what they are, is how you see them, right? It's that kind of thing as well. So there's this Argentinian film called Lugares Comunes, Common Places, where the protagonist says, there's nothing objective in life. The only objective thing in life are objects. And that is true. We are all subjective. So why hide our subjectivity? Now, please bear with me. I'm not saying that this and the guidelines are useless. I'm not saying that. I'm saying there is a spectrum between objective and subjective, between standard and alternative. There's a spectrum and many things in between. The objective type of access is very useful, and it's given us so much access for so many millions of viewers. This is fantastic. I don't want to knock it. I work on this, but I just don't want to see it as the only way. So today I would like to focus on that. Today I would like to focus on the journey that we have made, that we're making between this that we have in front of us, which is how we all started, how we translation people started, and then everything else that is moving away from this, but and everything in between too. So why am I saying that this is focused on comprehension and compensation? And right, let me give you an example. So yeah, let's have a look. Let me just show you something here. Well, okay, I wasn't sharing the full screen. Sorry. Let me just share the full screen. How do I share? Basic, advanced. How do I share everything? It's not allowing me because it's giving me Windows only.
Share your whole screen?
Yeah, it's just, I know, but it's just giving me windows, options to share windows, not to share. Oh, anyway, I'll share it again. Okay, you can see this, right? This is a little film that I made. Can you see it now, Caroline?
Yes, we do.
Great. So, with and about a blind friend of mine. And it starts like this.
What? What I can imagine I'm seeing now will be as if somebody put my head in a bowl of porridge. It was just nothing. I'm now 70 years of age, and I went blind when I was 16. I had a stroke behind the optic nerve.
So this is a film with and about Trevor, right? Now, let me just get back to you guys and to you. Okay, so at the beginning, Trevor says, well, there's a voice, dark screen, and the voice says, what I can see now is if I put my head in a bowl of porridge, I see nothing, right? And then we see Trevor speaking and we identify him, right? Now, imagine that you guys, you've done subtitling, right? So imagine that you were to follow Netflix guidelines for this. You'd be saying, okay, how do I identify a speaker when the speaker has not been identified yet? Anybody? Anyone, guys? What do you do? Yeah, exam question. What do you think? You know, even if you don't know the guidelines, what are the options? So we've got a voice.
Can you repeat the
voice? Yeah. So we've got a voice of a man speaking, and he says something, and we're subtitling that English into English or French into French. In this case, English into English for the hard of hearing, for the deaf and hard of hearing. But, well, how do we identify? You know, if I'm speaking, you say Pablo, right? But in this case, what do we put between brackets? How do we identify that voice? Because he's not been introduced yet, right? What do we normally do for that? Have you ever seen it?
Yep.
The older man.
Yeah, that's an option, isn't it? And I believe that if you go to the Netflix guidelines, they'll probably say man. And why do we not put in there Trevor? Why man and not Trevor? Sorry?
Yeah, he's going to answer in French and I can translate it.
Yes, of course.
Spoil qui parle parce qu'après on donne son nom.
Okay, not to actually spoil the fact that
yes,
be introduced after.
Now let's think this through. When I asked this question today in this Italian class, the answer was the same. It was like, well, because hearing people don't know it, right? Hearing people don't know who this is. So, but think about what's wrong with this. Not with this answer, but think about what this implies. It implies that when we approach subtitles for the deaf, we approach it from the point of view of the hearing. Do you see what I mean? We think, what would the hearing get? This is what the deaf should get. Now apply to audio description. What do I get as a sighted person? What do I describe? But is this the way we should always apply it? You know, is a deaf because this, philosophically speaking, this defines the deaf person as the person who cannot hear. You see what I mean? We are the norm. They are not. They are devoid of something. They are the ones that have a little hole in them. They cannot see. They cannot hear. Now, I don't want to exaggerate too much, but this is the way we're approaching it. So, you know what's, in my opinion, what's slightly questionable of this is the following. We're not thinking about the deaf person. We're thinking about the deaf person from the point of view of the hearing person. And if I do that, I say, yes. I cannot give him something that the hearing person doesn't have. Now, can I direct you back to my film, for example? If you've seen it, at some point, I explain things about how the film was stolen. Remember, guys? Yeah? Now, if the sighted person watches the film without audio description, will they know about the film being stolen?
I guess no.
They wouldn't. No. And is there any problem in me giving extra information to blind people? Maybe not, right? I mean, why do I have to give them exactly the same thing that sighted people get? If we think in that way, we're thinking a compensatory form. We're thinking, give them exactly what, but I think there's another way of doing things. And the other way is, what experience do I want to give my deaf person, my deaf viewer, my blind user, And here it's a silly example, but if I say man, now please don't think as a hearing person, think as a deaf person if you can. If I put there man, that's fine. I'm not revealing, I'm not spoiling, as you said, right? But is there not a chance that the deaf person will read man, blah, 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 blah. Then they see Trevor. And then they may be thinking, hang on, is Trevor the man or not? Maybe the man is someone else. Maybe there's a quote from a blind person, because many filmmakers start with quotes that don't have to be Trevor. So for me, the reason why I would say Trevor is because I put everything in the balance and I say, I'd rather not create that confusion. I don't mind spoiling and letting them know that this is Trevor, but at least I'm not leading to confusion. But I'm doing this from the point of view of the deaf person, not the hearing person. I don't mind the hearing person in this case. And this is a different approach to subtitling, because I don't subtitle thinking straight away, what is it that I can hear and they cannot hear? No, 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 no. I subtitle from their point of view, not from their disability, but from their ability. Is a deaf person the person who cannot hear? Or is a deaf person a person who can see? So then why not start from what they can see? So if I have a shot in front of me that I have to subtitle for a deaf person, I think first of all of what can they see in the image? And then what is it that maybe they need for extra? But you don't start from when they miss, start from what they have. Does that make sense? There is a scene from The Artist that sometimes I show. Let me see if I can. Okay. Do I have it? Yes. Maybe here. Just a sec. Just a second. Yeah, in there. Don't have it. Okay. Doesn't matter, but at least I can see you and you can see me, so I'll explain. From the film The Artist, in which some actresses are doing a casting and they're dancing and they're being chosen for the film. And they dance like this, right? And the caption says, vivacious, whatever dance, or no, vivacious, whatever music, vivacious and very lively music. Now, the time it takes you as a deaf person to read all that, yes, you're providing all the information you want. That's fine. But you're explaining things. You're appealing to their brains. You're appealing to their comprehension. You make them read something that will give them all the information that they need. But you're really focusing on what they're missing. If you were looking at the image, you would see that the dance is already vivacious. So you don't have to put that, So I guess you have to decide whether you subtitle to the abilities of something or to the disabilities of someone. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And going back to what I was sharing, of course, you can only see one, or that's a tricky thing. Let me see. Share. I don't know why it's not allowing me. Well, there we go. You have to decide whether you focus on this idea of compensation and comprehension, or you appeal to something else. And I want to see here, I've got you on the side. Let me give you an example. A filmmaker I was working with. So he was creating something that he wanted to be accessible from scratch. And he told me, there's this scene where the bad guy comes, approaches a girl, and is going to, hurt her, right? And I want suspense there. I want the audience to be on tenterhooks. I don't want a voice saying, oh, Peter is approaching the girl, because it takes you away from the whole thing, right? So you know what he did? He said, okay, I've got an idea. He talked to a blind consultant, and the blind consultant said, oh, that's easy. What we can do is we can give this character, this actor, a key ring that he carries in his pocket, and and when he moves, you can hear it from the beginning of the film. And in that scene, you won't have to say he's approaching anything. You'll just hear it. You see, we're not compensating, we're not appealing to comprehension, we're not describing there. All we're saying is a blind person cannot see, but they can hear. And if they can hear, can we give them things through sound, not just through words? You play into their abilities. You're being, let me see. You've got the PowerPoint in front of you, right? Let me move to the very, very last scene, last bit. If this is the other way of approaching access, guys. You've got the access spectrum, right? I'm going to move this up a little bit, or down, actually, there. So standard access is about objectivity, which is not properly written there, accuracy, comprehension, compensation, empirical evidence, but it turns, in my opinion, this is very subjective opinion, of course, it turns access into a technique. I feel that sometimes my students end up applying guidelines, and this is a technique for them. And you know, they get obsessed with, okay, how many characters per second, how many, it becomes like a science and a technique. They lose sight of the craft. Another way of doing access and everything in between, because it's not polar opposites, you got things in between, is be less subjective, put your person in there. Maybe you can be a little more creative. You can engage the viewer through sound and images. You can try, you can get it wrong, these are the things that I was trying to tell you. Let me tell you one thing that some disabled people tell me that is wrong with objective access, and is I watch a film, like you guys watch my film and you hate it. Imagine you think like, oh man, this is boring, it's telling me nothing, it's giving me nothing. And you were thinking, Pablo, 10 years of your life that you've wasted, for example, right? Now, you can blame me because you know that the film comes from me. And if you don't like it, it's my film that you don't like. And you may choose not to watch any more of my films. Problem with access, objective access, is that this disabled person told me once, it is presented to me as the voice of God, as something that is not questionable, as a description between brackets that is super objective, and that's it. How am I to question that what I'm hearing is a suspenseful type of music, or the description? Because they're not coming from a person almost. They're just there objectively, not authored. You know what I mean? So it's annoying because, yes, okay, you take it as truth and that's it. But don't you want to know where it comes from? Who is the person doing it and why they did it in that way? Just as you see a film, don't you have the right to like it or not like it, and to like the intention and the work of the person who did it? But no, you know what happens, guys? In standard access, I'm exaggerating a lot, but what I'm saying is in standard access, we hide behind the guidelines. We just apply them. We hide behind the technique. We turn everything into something that is, because when you do it like that, you don't have to expose yourself. Oh, sorry, I was just applying the guidelines, don't blame me. You see what I mean? Whereas if I do the film as I did it, Max Sound can say, Pablo, I hate your audio description. And I said, okay, fine, I'm sorry, but I felt that I had to do it like that because I felt that I had to make this film. The other day, someone told me, when you know that a film project is worth doing is when you feel that you need to do it. And for some years now, I haven't felt the need to make a film. Now I do, and I'll explain that later. But for this film, I felt the need to do it. And for this type of access, I felt the need to do it like that. So I'm not hiding behind that. But this is the same as if you guys read scholarly essays that we write, articles and stuff. Have you not noticed that in English, we often use the passive voice? We say, this is believed to be blah, blah, blah. But hey, who's writing? There's an author there, right? Why don't you dare write in the first person then? Expose yourself as well. I am writing about access. Am I a disabled person? No. Well, should I not just say it? I am teaching subtitles for the deaf. Am I deaf? No. So it doesn't mean that I cannot teach it, but it would be valuable if I expose myself. This is the place where I see the world from. And this is from this place, I am making a film. I am writing an article. You see what I mean? If we hide behind the passive voice, if we hide behind the guidelines, if we turn media access into a technique, I am very afraid that we make it more likely to be done by a machine in the end. I mean, we fear that ChatGPT can take over and, well, you know, what ChatGPT does and what large language models do and machine translation is they apply patterns. They look, 10 years ago, when I was teaching in London, someone who I was teaching subtitles for the deaf to said, Pablo, how do I know how to describe music? I'm going to stop sharing because I want to be with you now. And they said, how do you know? What language do you use to describe music? Suspenseful, ominous, that they say it in English as well. But I don't know what words to use, right? So we said, oh, don't worry, because we like linking research and training and practice, let's do a little study between all of us where we compile a corpus, a group of descriptions used on TV for music, right? For captions. And we did. We came up with like 300. We classify them, music, whatever. So it was great because every time we had music and we thought, okay, what do we have? Blah, blah, blah. This one applies and we used it. And we were all very happy, right? Now, when I look back at that, I'm thinking that was valuable. But that is like us doing what ChatGPT can do better. Because what machines can do is they can apply what's being done and put it in front of you. And it works. I know that it works. But come on, we're humans. Humans can do more than just, and I'm not saying that was valueless, you know, valueless is not even a word, that was useless. I'm not saying that was useless. What I'm saying is there's a value in that. But now with the new technology, you can use technology for that. Maybe that's not the best use of our human time. Maybe the best use of our time is to find your style, to find the way you do things. You know, what makes us human is the fact that there are 7 people there and they're all different, right? And if you bring 1 million, they'll be all different. Well, that's what makes us different. That's what makes us human. So can we bring that difference to the way we provide access? You see what I mean? Can Maxan provide access in a different way to the other 6, 7 people who are there? You know what I mean? What is, when I was teaching standard access, it got to a point where if you apply the rules properly, you got a 10 out of 10. But in a way, I was encouraging people to be as similar as possible. As, you know, there were no styles there. Elisa was subtitling in the same way as Marta, as Paula, and as Anna. And I didn't let them be different, you know what I mean? So maybe there's nothing wrong because most of the jobs out there are for applying guidelines and that is fine. But let's just be aware that if these things become automized, don't you think that it's more likely to become automized through following guidelines than through breaking them? You know what I mean? So we have to think about that. I'm just saying, you know, that is to bear in mind. But let me show you something else. Okay, here, back to where we were, and
it's really interesting that you're talking about this specifically because their last AD will be a tailor-made, so they had to choose a very non-conventional movie, and they had to, you know, tailor-made something for that specific short film. So I'm eager to hear it and see it.
That's fantastic. Here, yeah, we'll cover that. Can I move to this and ask you a question, guys? Look, let's look at this point of view. I mean, we have access, standard, objective, and as a technique. But now we want to move to something else. So let's see it from another point of view. Let's take someone like Mia Mingus, who's a disability studies person, and ask her, Mia, how do you see access? And she tells us, for me, access is justice. Yeah? What is disability justice? She says, this is, let me move it a little bit. Oh, how can I move this down? Okay, let's see. A social justice movement that examines disability and ableism as they relate to other forms of oppression. Ableism, guys, keyword, okay? Super keyword. Do you have a word in that for French? What's the word in that for French, Caroline? Does that exist?
For what word?
Ableism.
I have no idea what it means.
Okay, let's have a look. Ableism is the discrimination of disabled people normally by non-disabled people. In Spanish, it's capacitismo. Capacitismo, or capacitismo, I have no idea. But let's examine it, and I'm sure it must exist. Look, the interesting thing about disability justice is that it looks at ableism, at the discrimination of disabled people, as it relates to the discrimination of people by ways of gender and race and class. So, key elements of this: we are suddenly not just doing a technique; we're actually fighting against an oppression that links us to those who are fighting for the equality of women, equality of different races, and so forth. So we're now at the forefront of a social justice movement. That's interdependence. Yeah. Ableism. What is ableism? Ableism dictates what is normal. You see, it dictates what is normal. So look at me. I'm white. I'm middle class. I'm 42. I'm not disabled. I'm very normal. You see, I am very normal. What people normally describe as normal. Where do we find that? Well, I showed yesterday. I showed a picture of the U.S. sitcom from the 90s, Friends. Remember that? Was that big in Montreal maybe as well?
Maybe they are a
Right.
little bit young to know it.
Yeah, of course. But if you have a look at the pictures, it's just that, okay, yeah. Okay, Friends, images series, there you go. I mean, it's very 90s now, obviously.
It's probably on TikTok, so everybody knows about it.
Look at these pictures, guys. Can you see them? I mean, what we see here is the description of normality, so to speak. Heterosexual, good-looking, middle class, white, and no one smokes, no one drinks, whatever. So this is really the idea of normality for a long time. That's what has been. Now things have changed with diversity now. So if you see promotional videos from universities, you always get a white person and a black person and a Asian-looking person and a little bit, men and women and a little bit of that, right? But remember, disability is still considered the forgotten diversity still, okay? The forgotten diversity. But it's a shame because ableism really cuts across pretty much everything. Back to this. Because ableism dictates how bodies should function. And then that basically means that queer and trans people, are classified as mentally disabled, communities of color. I mean, this is obviously historically speaking, humans, women's bodies, immigrants, people with disabilities. Because what we do is we decide what's normal, then obviously what follows is what is not normal, what is different, right? Fine. So we carry on. And now I'm going to give you what I think is like the most appalling piece of data that I found in the past month about all this, which is, this is ableism at work, okay? Now, disabled people make up 22% of the UK population. Everyone with me, yeah? 1 in 5.
Yeah.
Now, can anyone explain to me why on earth disabled people made up 60% of all the deaths involving COVID in the UK in 2021? I'm sorry for this, but what the hell? What happened there? And what happened was this, is that when emergency services, when special places for treatment, when ambulances were to be sent and to be, made available, they were not made available to many disabled people because they were considered to have underlying health conditions. That is, when the government had to prioritize who to help and who to not help, they did not help disabled people because they were deemed to have something else, other diseases or other illnesses. Yeah, but this is what's happening. This is ableism at work. So a lot of disabled artists who work in the media have come together in the UK to fight this. And what they say is, we will be discriminated against as long as our reality is not known, as long as we don't work with non-disabled people, we don't live with non-disabled people, as long as they're, we don't live amongst them, we don't coexist because we are in somewhere else, some other place where they don't see us. So it's easier to discriminate against us. So what they did is this, they created an association called underlying health condition. And can you see there the camera and the wheelchair?
Mm-hmm.
So what they've done is they created this report where they said, the problem is that we are not in the media. We don't make films. We don't make scripts. We don't edit films. We don't hold cameras. We are not in front of the camera either. So it's on-screen and off-screen participation and representation. It's not happening. So they showed us this. 22% of the population is disabled, but only 8% are in front of the camera as characters. Only 5% are behind the camera as creative people, and only 3% are taking decisions. That is the issue at the moment. You see, that is the big issue. So let me carry on a little bit. Do you remember, and I'm covering it now, but do you remember this slogan that says, nothing about us without us? Yeah, that's the disability slogan. Nothing about us without us. But man, is that, let's put it down there. You know, it's not really, because I can't say that. I'm not a disabled person. So it's nothing about them without them. And my question is, how much have we done in media accessibility about them without them? How much? And in film, you know, well, that's what ableism comes in. It's everywhere. So participation, we've seen it, right? It's the extent to which people get to make films or not. I'm going to show you a commercial, and I'd like to gather your views on it. Okay. So here comes. Let's see. Stop sharing and sharing again soon. It's a 1-minute commercial. So have a look at it and tell me what you make of it. It's a very, very well-known Toyota commercial that was played during the Super Bowl. And it became a massive hit. So I think, tell me, Colin, if you can see and hear this.
En Amazon encontrarás promociones con estilo. Encuentra miles de grandes ofertas diarias en Amazon.
Just a sec. Wow, okay, so I'm going to have to move everything up to top. Just a second. Now,
Mrs. Long?
Could you see and hear, Karen?
Yeah, we can see it.
And not hear it? Yeah.
We hear it too.
Okay, great. I'm going to play the captions in case, and that's it. Let's go for it.
Mrs. Long?
Yes?
We've found a baby girl for your adoption, but there's some things you need to know. She's in Siberia, and she was born with a rare condition. Her legs will need to be amputated. I know this is difficult to hear. Her life, it won't be easy. Mrs. Long?
It might not be easy, but it'll be amazing. I can't wait to meet her.
We believe there is hope and strength in all of us. Toyota, proud partner.
Okay, now, so this is a very, very well-known commercial, okay? Now I'm going to, yeah. So can I just ask you guys, tell me, what do you make of it, please? Anyone, just a view, what do you think? What, if you had to describe it or if you have to say something about it, what would you say? Feel free to say it in French, I don't mind, whatever. Do you like it? Do you not? What do you like about it?
Funk? No? Maxence?
I mean, it starts by describing the disability of the person as a bad thing, like throughout the whole video when saying that her life is going to be difficult, etc., etc. It's as if, like, from the start, they're saying she's not going to be normal and it's going to be like a huge handicap for everyone, instead of just like stating she might need to be amputated, period. It's just like she might need to get amputated and this and that, which has like very negative connotation to it.
Brilliant. Look, this is okay. If we are to have a look at most comments online, for example, right? Let's see. So the same question that I asked you, but we can ask the world about it. So
Partner of team.
yeah, and we move. And this is what the world thinks. The world thinks this is not, you've got it in front of you, right? So this is not a commercial. This is an anthem for those humans who never give up. Really love this. I tear up, I cry every single time I see this. By far the best and most inspiring commercial, beautiful message, etc. Right? So obviously this works. It really, really works, right? But the problem with this is that if we take a critical disability studies view on it, we start looking at what Maxon has said. And there are a lot of issues here, a lot of issues. But let's start from the biggest ones. We start from, you can still see the images,
Yes,
Caroline? Yeah, good. So we start from her, and we start from her having no legs. Can you see that straight away? First thing we see, she has no legs. Okay. Now, this is how we are, you know, when you introduce a character in the film, you introduce it with some meaning, right? Now, is Caroline defined by her long curly hair? Well, no, that's just one more aspect of her, right? Is Maxon defined by having glasses? I don't even know if you do, but is she defined by having no legs? Well, that's the way we're doing it here. Yeah, that's the first thing we show. Second, we move into darkness. Guys, how many times have you seen this kind of imagery? A war hospital, isn't it? With people who are wounded coming from war. Have you not seen this before? Yeah, and it's dark. It's dark. The beginning of the commercial is dark. The ending is not going to be dark. In 1 minute, we're going to go from sadness into happiness. Yeah, how? Because we swim out of the darkness. We overcome our disability. Yeah, we walk, we fight. By the way, we're walking towards mommy, and that's not trivial. It's important. We keep walking. We swim to the celebration of our coach, of a regional crowd, of the world crowd. And we finish.
Amazing.
And this is the main shot. This is really the main shot. Now, you guys, if you've looked at film before, you know that the important elements on the screen you put on the center, right? But where is she? Honestly, where is she? She's bottom right corner. What is the focus of this shot? What is the focus of the ad? The focus is this warm? Is this dark? It's not dark anymore. This is warm now. This is a warmly lit living room with warm light, with a family that is brought together and that are the heroes because they decide to take on the girl, right? But what is this telling us? It's telling us, I mean, where is the disabled person? Nothing about us without us, right? Is the disabled person even saying anything? No, she's not. She is there for our inspiration. So this is what Stella Young calls inspirational porn, which is the use of disability to inspire non-disabled people. Because you know what? This ad is made for me, for Pablo, to watch it and think, wow, you know, if she has it so tough, if these people are so nice, you know, what can I complain about my life? You know what I mean? And I am inspired because of this. But we are using the disabled person for our own inspiration. And we're not letting them talk, and we're not letting them make anything, you see? Are you with me on this one, guys? Yeah?
Yeah, so, because I'm just stopping your flow because we had this conversation with one of my students, Nufisa, because on Monday there was a blind person who came with the two other women working at Densité, and she really talked about her experience, and it was really inspiring and really touching. But she was there and she was talking, and the other two person couldn't talk about her experience. She had to be there and she had to be part of this project they're building.
Exactly. And you know, this is a matter of agency. Who does things, you know, who gets to do things, who gets to make this commercial? Look, there was a disabled person who watched this commercial with me, and she said there's two things that are hurtful about this commercial. The first one is that we're being used for your inspiration. And she says, like Stella Young, I really, really recommend it's just a 8-minute talk, but it will really change the way you feel. Stella Young inspirational on TED Talk, okay? And she is brilliant. And what she says is, look, I am not here to inspire you. I am not your object of inspiration. Look for inspiration elsewhere, you see? And this is a big truth. And you know what disabled people say? Some disabled people say when they watch this ad, they say, it's not just that we're being used for your inspiration. It's that you're not even thinking about how that makes us feel. imagine if you have no legs. What message is this sending you? Is this sending you a message that, well, don't worry, you can overcome by your disability by becoming a Paralympic medalist? I mean, nobody's going to ask Maxim to say something like, Maxim, you'll only succeed in life if you win a gold medal in Olympics. Come on. Then I'm dooming you to failure. You know what I mean? So why should these people be subject to that? Listen, a disability is not something that you need to overcome. First, you may not be able to. Second, you may not want to. Let's have a look at another one and watch it with the same critical eye, please. And we'll link all this to accessibility, not to worry, but accessibility is not just a technique, it's a way of thinking about the world, a way of being in the world. And you have to choose how you want to see it, okay? Wheel. Oh, this is from Canada, actually. Oh my, I've never played it in Canada. Okay. Okay, yeah, well, what a coincidence. Just come to me now. Okay, so this is your government, guys. And it's have you seen this? Maybe you have already.
Well, this is Canadian government or Quebec government?
Well, I don't know. You'll have a look. Well, it's in English, so it will be not the one in Quebec. Have a look. You may not feel concerned about it then. Okay, have a look. You can see in here probably, yeah?
I pick up a broken comb, run it through my thin gray hair. Though I don't have any plans tonight, I'm not going anywhere. Well, I should have seen this coming. Don't know why I'm surprised.
When the best of us steps up, our nation stands a little taller. We all play for Canada.
Hey, now we all play for Canada. I don't know if this is all Canada or this is just the non-French speaking part of Canada. Would this apply to you guys or not, Caroline?
It would apply to us too.
Okay,
I was kind of
fine. I'm not so familiar yet with the ins and outs of the politics over there, but I'm sorry, guys, this applies to you, okay? So now, please, have you identified some of the issues there? Anyone can tell me? Surely you have. Look, first we have, this is, for me, the picture of normality. This is normal. This is, you know, when we talk about normal, what's normal, what's not normal, this is normal. People, kids playing basketball, having a good time. By the way, can you see? One is black, the other ones are white, but we already have the race there. One could be chubbier. This one is a little bit, fatter, so to speak. This one is blonde and nice looking. Can you guess who's going to be the protagonist? Yeah. It's going to be the blonde, good-looking one. This is how things work, right? And it reinforces our idea of normality. It does that, the hero, Okay. There you go. Now, he's moving out of the he's moving into some sort of darkish place. Can you see that already? Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, why is this place not lit up properly? You tell me, but it's not. Okay. So, something ominous. Whoa. Okay. What is this? Come on. It's a wheelchair. It's not even a person. Can you see? We're identifying, we're introducing something, this is the good-looking kid that suddenly is scared looking at what? A wheelchair that is moving. Not even the person. The way we introduce the disabled person is through its wheelchair. Okay? That's the first thing. Is that disabled person happy or not? It's not the picture of happiness. Now, why is he unhappy? Honestly, why? Is he unhappy because he's disabled? Or is he unhappy because this is the beginning of the ad and we're going to give him 1 minute to become a happy person? You see? In 1 minute, don't worry, we're going to make you happy. But for now, for this first shot, we want the picture of unhappiness. And that is him looking sad. And can anybody tell me what in this picture means problems? What? There's something else. Whether it goes in your mind consciously or unconsciously, I don't mind, but there's something else that is telling you bad problems. What? Anyone? Look at the stairs. Look at the stairs. I mean, are you not thinking, how are you even going to go down? But I'll be thinking for his mom, I'm thinking, how do you move into that house when there's no ramp? You know, everything is problem. And by the way, well, can you see that the house is not even lit up? Does that mean that when you're disabled? Sorry, Carol?
But I thought they were about to build a ramp in the ad, that it was about lumber.
I know, nothing, no ramp. And not only that, Colin, what are they telling us here in this shot? Because they want to strengthen this idea of darkness and unhappiness, then the lights are off. Does that mean that, when you're disabled, you don't turn on the lights? Why is that? It makes no sense. But don't worry, because somebody's going to bring a basketball to you. And you're thinking, oh, okay, I'm going to come out of the darkness. And now, how did he get down from the steps? This guy must be on the floor. He must have fallen. Unless the mom came out and carried the wheelchair and carried... No, that's not even possible, But it doesn't matter. The important thing is he's coming out of the darkness into the light. Come on, join us. And he does. And she is happy.
Best of us step.
Right? But I would really have a chat with her. And I would tell her first, we need a ramp. Yeah? Second thing, it's Tuesday afternoon. And your boy is happy because these kids are playing with him. But this is just, Tuesday afternoon. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, are they always going to play basketball sitting on boxes? It's not going to happen. This is what in English they call a stunt. It's not sustainable. It's not giving us a solution to a problem. It's a nice action that makes us all feel better. But that if you are that person, you're thinking, no, I'm sorry. I'm going to be here with no ramp and no way to play basketball because you guys are going to be playing like you were for the rest of a year. So it's just solving our problem in the ad. It's just giving us a nice little journey in which in a minute, someone becomes happy. But then we go away to our non-disabled lives and we're happy, but this person stays there with an issue. Yeah. So they're playing with us. And you know what? What is the ultimate evidence that shows that this film commercial has been done by a non-disabled person? Look.
Steps up. When the best of us steps up, our nation stands a little taller.
Honestly, when the best of us steps up, our nation stands taller in a commercial about a wheelchair? Gee. Really, I'm sorry, but if anyone on a wheelchair had done this commercial, they would have said, "What? Are you kidding me? Are you just kidding me?" But this commercial has been so well known that there is actually a video on YouTube about how it was made, and the person who made it is saying, "Well, it was, I'm explaining why it's so good and because of this and that and that," and you really feel like saying, "I'm sure that from your point of view is good." And look, a month ago, not a month, but a year ago, I would have watched this and I would have been inspired and think it's amazing, as the comments will show here, well, not here because there are no comments, but lovely in other places. And it's just an idea of, bring in participation. Remember, bring in a disabled consultant, a disabled filmmaker, and you'll see things from a different point of view. And they'll tell you, no, man, you can't do that, So, this is what's happening. And I'm going to show you, let's see if I can share from the presentation. This is, it would be avoided if we had participation, right? We said that. Let me just have your faces there. So it would be different if we had this participation in the filmmaking process from disabled people. But also think about representation. How are we representing disabled people as objects of inspiration, right? Now, remember that I said disability is the forgotten diversity. Now, let's look at other diversities. Let's look at, okay, women. You know, women are not a minority, they're a majority, but they've been oppressed. Now, we've made progress on this. In Spain, we've made loads of progress on this. In film as well, but it wasn't always like this. Have you ever come across this? Have you ever come across the Bechdel test? Caroline, you heard about this?
No, I don't.
Well,
they heard about it in class, actually.
Yeah, because it says, it's for the representation of women in film, right? It's about, you know, it's actually an idea that someone came up with in a comic. And then it was used in film because it says a film may portray women in a fair way, in an equal way, if it features more than two women in the film, they talk to one another about something other than a man. It started as a joke, but when you pass this test through the history of cinema, how many films fail the test? You wouldn't believe it, how many. So many, the majority, right? Now, my question to you is, okay, now, would you be able to make would you as a filmmaker get away with a film that has all men and then one woman who's the sexual object? These days, most of the time you can't get away with that anymore. But you can get away with the portrayal of disability in the commercials that we just seen. Because you know why you can get away with it? Because we like it, because we're inspired by it. So can we have a disability test? Can we say, okay, disability is not going to be accurately portrayed on screen unless there actually are disabled characters, maybe more than one. I'm going to put this down again, sorry. Their role is not just about being disabled. They're not just there because they are disabled, right? And they're not there to support me as a non-disabled character or to provide me with comic relief or with inspiration. You know, they're there because they need to be there, part of the story. How many films pass this test? I mean, I've just made up this test, but how many films pass it? You know, I don't know, very few. So what is a good portrayal of a disabled person? I don't know. We got to work it out. You know, we and disabled people have to work it out. I saw one that I was interested in yesterday. It's a film called, it's a series called Industry in the UK. And it's all about, people working in the city, in businesses. And there's this meeting around the table where the boss, a female boss, is really tough to the workers and is basically saying, sorry guys, unless you meet the goals, you're out. She's ruthless, okay? After the 5-minute meeting or whatever, they stand up and leave, really angry. She doesn't stand up. She just goes away in her wheelchair. You see, we didn't see the wheelchair. We didn't see it. It's just one more element. It's not there because, she's not defined by her disability. She's defined by her being ruthless in her job. That's the important thing. Now, the fact that she's in a wheelchair is just one more aspect. That's it, good or bad, whatever. It's just there, just as, I guess what I'm saying here is that I would like to live in a world where, you are going to a shop and you're talking to a person and then that person moves away from the counter with a wheelchair and you're not even paying attention to the fact that she's in a wheelchair. It's just one more element, but we're not living in that world yet. We could, because 1 in 5 are disabled, but we're not, because they are not with us most of the times. Another example is in Berlin.
Oh, there's a question from one of my students. I'm going to translate it.
Go for it.
Mais ça, ce n'est pas voir le mal un peu partout. Parce que là, dans la pub qui vient de montrer celle de... Avant, on n'avait pas d'enfants noirs. Avant, on n'avait pas d'enfants un peu popotes, on va dire. Parce que... Et là, on a la chance d'avoir un enfant noir, un enfant, comme je viens de le dire, et aussi quelqu'un qui est en chaise roulante, et on continue de voir toujours le mal un peu partout.
So she's wondering...
On est en pleine évolution, et que l'évolution, ça prend du temps, et ça prend plusieurs étapes, et ça prend le temps de faire des erreurs, mais là, c'est aller chercher la petite bête un peu... On ne peut pas dire ça comme ça.
So she's wondering, isn't it a little bit too negative to focus on the what's wrong in the Canadian Tire ad instead of seeing the improvement, seeing that there's a little black guy, there's a chubby guy. There's somebody in a wheelchair.
Good question. Good question. Great question.
On est en journée, tu n'allumes pas la lumière quand il fait jour. Ça, pour moi, c'est aller chercher. Mais ça, c'est mon avis. Je comprends son point de vue et je suis d'accord avec lui, mais j'ai aussi mon point de vue qui dit que pour moi, c'est juste aller chercher la petite bête.
So she was saying also that we are in a moment where we are evolving and there are changes occurring right now. We feel like we're getting there. Is it, or aren't we a little bit too critical about advertising that is trying to become a little bit more?
That's a great question. Can I ask you, since I'm speaking in English, is everyone following me okay?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, cool. That's a great question. And look, I am really, really not a pessimistic person. So I'm very, very optimistic. The only reason why I'm focusing on the negatives here is because I need you guys to develop critical thinking skills towards the way disability is represented on screen. That's why I need to focus on that. I agree with you that the world has moved on, that things have improved. And, you know, the other day I was giving this little speech for my graduates, and I was just talking about optimism and pessimism. And I was reminded of, you know, some people have always said, oh, people are bad by nature. And other people believe, oh, humans are good by nature. You know, obviously both are right. Yeah, both are right. It depends on what you want to focus on. I agree with Martin Luther King, who said that the arc of the moral universe is very, very long, but ultimately it bends towards justice. And what it means is, you know, we move forward, things get better. Sometimes we go back, sometimes there is, I don't know, I don't want to be too political, but there is you know, you've got this, suddenly you have someone in power who think, oh my God, how can we have this person there? And he counsels some laws and we lose rights, but ultimately we move forward, right? So racism is not the same as the racism that we had before. It's more subtle, so we have to be aware of it. And oppression is more subtle. You wouldn't get away with open oppression. You wouldn't get away with someone calling disabled people a retard now. You're a retard. No, you wouldn't get that these days. But things are more subtle. And because they're more subtle, they're less easy to find. And I am worried about people not seeing the ableism around them. So I agree with you that this ad is a way of showing that things have got better. Yes, more diverse. Look at the Friends picture that we saw before. This ad is so much better than that, right? But because ableism and other forms of oppression are now smaller, they're also, well, not as smaller, but they're not as evident, they're more subtle, then I need to focus on it so that we notice them. That's all. It's a journey that I have taken myself, you know. Like I said, 2 years ago, I would have been just simply super happy with this ad. Now I'm happy, but, and I don't want to miss this but, right? And one more thing, the reason why I think we need to keep fighting for this is because you are right, that this ad has a more diverse representation of society. But I could also go back to my slides and say, but look, you know, sorry, here, where was it? This is happening. You know, this is still happening. And I cannot just wait until, you know, I have to fight this. From my little corner in Spain, from talking about subtitles, I know I'm not going to change anything, but I need to fight this. I need to show this. And the reason why most people believe that this is happening is because we are not so aware of the lives and struggles of disabled people as we should be. So that's why I point at this ad in this way, you know. But I agree with you. Things are improving, for sure, for sure. It's just that in terms of, yeah, go for it.
Could it also be because you are more and more in contact with people with disabilities and you get to become friends with them, to have access to their, you know, their like day-to-day life,
exactly,
not only as a representation but really to get to live with them at some point and see what it means.
But I can ask you a question, Caroline, and everyone else. Imagine if you have, you know, there's this big conferences on accessibility, right? In Antwerp in 2 weeks, Media for All, the biggest conference. And in Berlin, Language in the Media 3 months ago or 4. 500 people go there, scholars, professionals. Now, you know how many people were disabled in that conference? 1. Now I ask you, can you imagine a conference on feminism where 499 people of the 500 there are men? You know, this wouldn't work, guys. It wouldn't work. So yes, we have moved forward in terms of diversities, but not in terms of disability yet, you see? But I have more, look. Yeah.
Okay, so we have another objection here.
Brilliant.
You want to say it in English? Go ahead.
Because I don't know what the conference was about, but I think if we keep the example of the feminism, I think men need to be educated about that subject much more than women. So, I mean, I mean, there are still women that are non-feminist, but I mean,
yes, I agree.
Non-feminist people are men, so that, I mean, if we go back to the disability conference, I don't think disabled people need to know about their own situation.
No, I agree. So the fact that you are disabled, look, the fact that you are a man doesn't mean that you're not feminist. The fact that you're a woman doesn't mean that you are a feminist, right? I agree with that. In Spain, we have this term machismo, right? Which is the discrimination of women. And we know a lot about that in Spain. We know a lot about that. And when we have demonstrations against machismo in Spain, where, you know, it's one of our big issues, but we've also made huge progress. We've advanced a lot. When we have demonstrations, you see men and women there. And, you know, so I agree with you. But the problem here is that, and as a non-disabled person, I can work on access. I can teach access. And in English, this is called an ally, A-L-L-Y. You know, I'm an ally in that fight, in that struggle. That's fine. But there's a problem there. And the problem is that it's not even discussed. Look at these figures, Maxan. The term ableism has been used since the 80s, okay? It's very, very common in English, okay? It's regularly used. It's a key term for a lot of people. Now, I would say, Maxan, that most people who are disabled have come across the term ableism because they have suffered it. Yeah? And so they suffer it. Whether you are an activist or not, chances are you're going to be discriminated against, because this is a world made by non-disabled people, mostly for non-disabled people. So people who write about accessibility have written about what? Almost 1,300 publications on media access since the 80s. You know how many of the, and this is talking about disability as well, right? How many of those publications mention ableism? 8. That's 0.6. Can you imagine race studies scholars talking about, you know, the struggle that Black people have had in society till now, writing for 30 years about race, about these struggles, and not mentioning the word racism once? That would be weird, wouldn't it? It's just that, well, we don't talk, access people like me, right? We don't talk to disability studies scholars. We have not had this connection yet, because we look at access as a technique. I look at access as the creation of subtitles and the creation of audio description. You see what I mean? It's words on screen. It's a little technique. It's not a social issue. And because most scholars are non-disabled. So I'm not saying that those conferences have to be full of disabled people. I'm saying that we have closed our eyes to the social implications of access. And that means that access has become a technique, and, you know, we are the ones who get to decide. You know, when I went to London, I moved to London in 2008. It was the only time where I saw a deaf person teaching accessibility, ever. I've never seen anyone after that. That's not even normal, you know? That's not even normal. So I don't know. I think I agree with you, but I think there's so much to be done here, so much more to be done. And now we're changing this. Now we're beginning to talk to disability scholars. Now they are beginning to be interested in access. And this is what interests me, because these, can you see it here? disabled scholars and disabled artists are now looking at access, and they're saying, well, these guidelines that you have a little bit ableist, they could be changed a little bit, because you're always thinking about what the deaf person, what the hearing person gets. And then you think about us, what the sighted person gets. And then you think about us. And they're telling us, you guys are too focused on compensation, too focused on comprehension, too focused on objectivity. Look, I'll give you an example. I developed a model to assess the accuracy of live subtitles. It's called the NER model, okay? And it gives you a percentage at the end. Live subtitles, like the ones you can have on Zoom here, subtitling me, you apply the model mathematically and you get a 98% or something, right? And I've worked for years on this. And look at what this deaf blind person says. He tells me this. It's almost like he was talking in my ear and telling me, Pablo, you're obsessed with accuracy. Your commitment to accuracy, to perfect replication, is a commitment to the status quo. We are expected to leave it untouched. And if it must be altered, to do so as little as possible. What this person is telling people and telling me is, you're obsessed with your model that tells me if captions are super accurate or not. But what accuracy are we talking about? The accuracy of how accurately they subtitle reality. That is our non-disabled reality. So we are obsessed with putting a ramp. I am obsessed with making a film or subtitling something and using it as a ramp for people who are excluded to come into my world and see it accurately as it is. But if I do that, what I'm doing is I am not changing this world. I'm not changing the world that excludes them. I'm just depicting it accurately. But this, philosophically speaking, is a way of not changing it. Can you see what I mean by this? And you know what is, they don't want to just access our world. They want to change it, because otherwise it will keep being exclusive, This is a conservative approach to access, which is fine and it works. But let's not forget that it's an approach to access that includes the disenfranchised in the existing world, but it does not change the existing world. And I am very interested now in hearing people like Caroline Lazard, a disabled artist. You know what she does? She says, oh, okay, you're giving me a ramp to access your world. And that's accommodation. That's access as accommodation. And you bring me into your world and you ask me to be grateful. Thank you so much. I've had so many deaf and blind people who, you test films with and you show them your description. They say, oh, thank you, thank you. But there's something wrong with that. Thank you. Caroline, is this a public or a private university that you're teaching in at the moment?
The public one.
Right. When you went into the class today, did you guys thank your government and Caroline and all the rest of the staff? Thank you so much for giving me this free education. Maybe you feel it, but you don't say it every day, do you? Because it's your right to have that education. It's your right. And okay, you're great. You are right in being grateful, but often we forget because it's our right. Now, access should be a right. They shouldn't be having to say thank you for it. They should be having to demand it. The problem is that we don't have enough access. So she says, we have to be grateful to join your party, guys. Yeah? And you know what she says? Look at this last line. Well, your party sucks. And I like this idea, because what she's telling us is what Martin Luther King said as well. When he was actually about to die 2 days before, he said, I've been fighting to integrate Black people in society. But you know what? What kind of society am I integrating them into? We have fought hard and long for integration, but I've come to believe that we're integrating into a burning house. What if the place that we're trying to bring disabled and Black people into is a place that is not good because it's excluding them? And he says, until we commit ourselves to ensuring that the underclass is given justice and opportunity, we will continue to perpetuate the anger and violence that tears at the soul of this nation. What I'm saying here, guys, is conservative access by the guidelines, it's giving a ramp to the world and leaving it unchanged. But some people don't want that. Mia Mingus says, and I love this woman, she's so good. She says, I don't just want us to get a seat at someone else's table. I want us to be able to build something more magnificent than a table. together with their accomplices. Who are their accomplices? Us, non-disabled allies, who say, well, you know what? It's not just that they want to have a say, which, by the way, they don't have. Remember that most disabled people don't even have a say. Does the Olympic swimmer speak in the ad? No. Most disabled characters in films, this is appalling, but there are few disabled characters in film. But you know what happens to 95% of them? They don't talk in the film. They don't even have a line. Yeah? Not to mention how many of those disabled characters are played by non-disabled actors, right? But still, when they're there, the disabled actors, the characters mostly don't talk. She says, it's not just that I want to talk. It's not just that I want to be heard and be heard and sit around the table with you guys. It's that I want to change that table. I want to change what? Filmmaking, theater making. I want to change that. You know, how do you change it? I don't know. If I'm an actor and I'm a disabled actor, then I'm going to have my access rider that says, look, I need an extra day for shooting because I need to rest after my shooting day. And that's the way it is. And so we change the way we shoot. We change the way we make films. Otherwise, if we don't change them, we're just telling them, you know, come here, but yeah, well, you know, adapt to this. No, we should change the world as well. So it's access as transformation. Have you got questions about this, guys?
Maybe it resonates a little bit with what we talked about at the beginning of the course on when we were with Ami Télé. Do you know Ami Télé?
No, I don't, but can you write it in the... No, you can write in the chat. You can, great.
So it's... So this is a channel that is been showing us television shows, movies with audio description, always on, which means like you go to that channel, it's always audio described and always subtitle. And since
very bold.
Since almost 20 years. And they also produce their shows with disabled people. And they are now part of the team. So they integrated disabled people as part of the team, of the production team. And they develop what they call integrated video description, because here in Canada, we say video description when it's for television.
Yeah.
And so it's not a voice over, it's people in the show. They are trained to talk and describe at the same time. So it's really, really interesting. And they are maybe producing a fiction with that new, you know, integrated video description. So I'll let you know about it.
How long have they been doing this integrated video description?
I would say probably, do you remember? Maybe 5 years, Claudette, do you remember? Not sure. And they also did some videos to explain what it is and what's the difference. I'm gonna send you the link. It's really, really interesting.
That's brilliant. That's fantastic. Caroline, a question to you. We've got a 3-hour class. We're right in the middle. Do you guys normally have a break or do you carry on? I'm easy with either way.
Normally we have a 15-minute break.
Okay, so shall we have it now and then we carry on? Is that a good idea?
Yeah, it's a good idea. Everybody's not doing like that.
Yes. Okay, brilliant.
15 minutes.
Okay, see you in 15, yeah?
Right. Thanks, Pablo.
Welcome.
Vas-y, passer le commentaire, mais est-ce qu'on pourrait pas dire que, enfin, quand on regardait la vidéo de Imagine Fire,
Oui.
est-ce que c'est un très vraiment, mais est-ce que c'est pas un peu la même pensée que le colonialisme? Je m'explique.
Oui.
C'est, genre, ils présentent beaucoup les personnes handicapées comme étant les personnes faibles à qui il faut apprendre des choses.
Oui.
Puis genre, les personnes non handicapées, genre, venez, on va vous montrer c'est comment, puis on va vous sortir. Genre, on doit vous changer parce que vous n'êtes pas bien comme vous êtes. Puis j'ai l'impression que c'est un peu toujours le même type de pensée.
Mais c'est aussi, en tout cas, moi, ce qui m'apparaît apparent, c'est que une marque va venir utiliser une espèce de corde sensible chez les spectateurs pour vendre sa marque. C'est-à-dire que Canadian Tire s'associe à on bâtit un monde meilleur où tout le monde va être inclus parce qu'on vend des ballons de basketball, parce qu'on vend des brouettes, parce qu'on vend toutes ces choses-là qu'on voit dans la cours qui vont faire en sorte qu'on peut adapter on peut adapter à la... Moi, c'est pour ça, au départ, je pensais qu'il allait faire une rampe. Là. Je me disais, ça y est, on va voir le garçon revenir avec son père, puis ils vont sortir des outils, puis ils vont... Parce que Canadian Tire, c'est souvent vendu comme un endroit où est-ce qu'on peut acheter des outils. Mais oui, c'est qu'il y a une forme de paternalisme parce que, la publicité montre comment des personnes qui ne sont pas handicapées peuvent aider une personne handicapée. Donc, le message de... Et c'est très mélodramatique. Moi, c'est ça qui vient me déranger le plus, surtout la première publicité. Là, c'est... Écoute, là, tu viens les larmes aux yeux, tout est hyper bien fait au niveau visuel, sonore, la musique, tout ça pour venir... Comment?
Ça venait d'où la première publicité?
C'est Toyota.
Mais est-ce que c'est un pays spécifique?
Ah, c'est une publicité américaine, c'était pendant le Super Bowl.
Les Américains.
Oui, mais encore une fois, Toyota, une compagnie qui est là pour... Il y avait beaucoup d'héroïsme, là, c'est très américain aussi, là, les parents qui sont des héros, une nageuse qui est une héroïne parce qu'elle peut nager sans ses jambes, il y avait quelque chose de vraiment très héroïque, là, et à mon sens, très, très américain. Et dans la pub de Canadian Tire, il y avait quelque chose de très canadien avec le multiculturalisme, mais aussi avec... comme, montrer comme une espèce d'entraide. Donc, en tout cas, je sais pas, moi, je voyais vraiment là, les deux pans, là, la publicité de Canadian Tire très proche des petits gens, alors que les Américains, on est toujours dans l'impression de quelque chose de plus bigger than life,
Puis comment il s'appelle?
Noufissa.
Quand elle dit qu'on cherchait la bête, je pense pas, c'est juste que genre, oui, c'est une avancée, mais si on dit que c'est une avancée, que c'est bien, on va plus continuer.
Oui, non, il faut continuer.
Clairement, on n'est qu'à la moitié du truc.
Oui, mais c'est qu'en ce moment, ça pousse fort dans plusieurs directions, puis moi, je pense que ça peut venir gêner un peu les gens, c'est-à-dire on peut se sentir un peu embarrassé par rapport à ça ou sentir qu'il n'y a pas assez de reconnaissance de ce qui est acquis. Mais non, il faut continuer de se battre, là. Faut continuer. Moi, avec mes enfants, moi, j'ai 2 filles, puis je leur dis, vous êtes bien ici au Québec, là, mais on s'est battu pour ça. Puis dans d'autres pays, vous ne voudriez pas vivre là, en tant que fille. Puis, il ne faut pas aller très, très loin là, pour sentir cette discrimination-là. Pablo, oui, parce que je ne suis pas sûre qu'elle va revenir. So I send you in the chat the link to MI Television and their integrated description video.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Thank you so much.
You will have some reading and viewing to do.
Brilliant. Looking forward to that. Excellent. I don't know if you guys have any question or carry on. Just let me know.
Any questions? Not for now.
Okay. So I want to show you a little video of an artist called Kristen Sun Kim. She is a deaf artist who works with sound, actually. And she made this very famous video about captions. So let me just play for you. Just a sec. So let me start from the beginning. There. And so it goes. I'm going to show you more of those captions. Now, what is she captioning here? You know, is she captioning images? Is she describing images or sound? Or how many times have we been told you don't describe a sound by saying the sound of because deaf people cannot hear? Well, what she's saying here is, I don't mind. You know, I don't mind what captions normally do. I want to do with them whatever I want. And in between those brackets, I'm going to describe whatever I feel like describing. Probably something in between images and sounds. Probably feelings. Maybe captions are being used to give you an extra layer of poetry into the film, because who's to say what captions can give you, you know? So captions are in this box, and that's what we normally do. And the box is given to us by the guidelines. But what if you just take it out of the box? What if you liberate the captions and you use them for whatever you want, which is what she's doing, right? So the day goes on. There's music. Well, hang on. And when she comes back to her, or the person goes back to her house, there is some sort of conversation going on. Conversation is not going well. And you got the words throwing punches. And you get the sound of hurt feelings coming over. And the sound of the temperature slowly dropping at night. And stars having a conversation with one another. And finally, as the air becomes stiff, there's a long and stretched side. We're going to bed. Son of pillow holding head. And the day ends like the last left line of a poem. So, you know, what is this? Poetic captions? Maybe. There's a lot of people who are captioning like this these days. Because, you know, they are adding this extra layer. They're using access as one more tool in the toolkit of the filmmaker to give you something else, you know? These are captions that can only be done by someone who decides to do this. So then, you know, Christensen Kim always says, right, that, you know, why can I not choose my caption? Because I know that if I choose Pete, then he's going to give me a straightforward guideline type of subtitles. But if I choose Mary, maybe Mary will caption it poetically. Well, you know, which one, by the way, is more likely to be replaced by a machine? Probably not this, yeah? So, you know, I'm not saying that, and she knows that you're not going to describe the music as, you know, the violin set in, blah, 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 in 1,000 lines like she did before. She's playing with us, but she's playing with captions, you know? There's this little written piece by a friend of mine, Aline Remael, who curated an exhibition on artistic captions online, actually, in Belgium. And she ended up her writing by saying, we can be playful, play with us. And the people, the voice was coming from captions, you know, captions were writing a letter to us. And they were saying, yes, we can do what you want us to do. We can do the guidelines, we can do that, but we can do many more things, you know, just play with us because then we will play with you. And, you know, the way these people are playing with captions is just to send a message back to us saying, you know, access works in the way you do it, but, you know, maybe you can see it from our point of view and do something else, you know, because the point of view of a deaf person is not a person who has the absence of sound as we normally think. Deaf people have sound, they feel the sound, they go to nightclubs, they dance to beats, they hold a stereo music type of thing, and they can feel the sound in a way that we cannot feel it because we don't feel it physically. We normally just hear it, but for them it's a different thing. So, you know, there's a whole rich world of sound for a deaf person, and we can play with it as well. You know, it's easier when you're deaf, but if not, we can play with them. We can realize, we can, you know, so there are different approaches, and we just have to be a little bit more, you know, liberated in the way we do it. I'll show you an example from a student who wanted to do something different. Look.
I think Claude, to say something?
Yes.
Est-ce que
yes,
je peux poser une question en français, Caroline?
Yes,
I'll translate it.
Les sous-titres qu'on vient de voir, est-ce que c'était description uniquement de musique ou il y avait aussi des descriptions de son?
So the artist was describing only music or also sounds?
I think she was describing a little bit of everything, to be honest. I think she was, you know, a lot of people talk about caption descriptions as the space in between images and sounds. And imagine if you start playing with it. Sometimes you will describe images, sometimes sounds, sometimes feelings, sometimes, you know, sensations. She's just playing poetically with captions, I think. So I don't think we can say whether she was describing images or not. I think she was just adding, she made a little film and she wanted to give us a feel for what people feel, what the feelings are in that film. And she used captions to convey that. Yeah, I think so. And since then, I've seen loads of films that use this kind of captions, that suddenly the captions talk to you. You know, they're telling you things, they're giving you something, you know. They're not only there to tell you what people are saying and what sounds are being made and stuff like that, you know. So I think that's another option. Look, I'm going to show you something else, which is, let me see. This is by a student of mine, and let me just play it first. Material. Okay. Sorry, sharing. Have a look at this one. So this is Fantasia, Disney clip. Imagine if you were to do what the student did, which was she took on a task, which was, I want to provide a version of this clip that is accessible for both blind and deaf people. So let's hear it first. Sorry, just make sure that I get the sound. Yeah, it is. Okay, so how would you go about, imagine if I tell you, yeah, let's make it accessible to blind and deaf people, but we got a problem here, right? Because we've got sound that deaf people may not be able to access, and that is given this Tchaikovsky piece. Then we got images that blind people may not be able to access, that are showing us this kind of dance, and they're dancing to the music, right? So, if we were to use standard access, we could just describe things, right? A Tchaikovsky piece between brackets, and explain what type of music it is. The description can talk about the fairy as she dances to the music, but what we would be doing there is explaining. Yeah, we will be explaining. Remember that this principle about film, that is, film should show, not tell, right? Here, we will be telling and telling and telling. And when you tell, these things go in cognitively, but you don't feel them. When I showed my film without audio description, after the film finished, we had a Q&A session, a discussion, and people asked, and I told them that the film had been stolen. That comes in as a fact, but it's not part of your experience watching the film. And here, if I explain things in brackets or I describe it like that, it doesn't really come in. The experience is audiovisual, but what I'm giving is just an explanation, a fact. It's not sensorial. It's not okay. So this is what she decided to do in order to first make it accessible for both deaf and blind people, but in a way that doesn't appeal to the brain. It appeals to the senses. Let's see.
The Nutcracker.
Can you see it now or not? Maybe not.
We see it.
And it says the Nutcracker on screen, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. And you can hear it. Okay, let's go.
The Nutcracker by Tchaikovsky. The conductor races both his hands, and the light throws his back with the silhouette. Little shiny dots fly in the dark of the night, gracefully jumping all the way. Color purple stands out, finds a flower to light with her wand in a fairy shape. Color pink wants to dance, she performs this ballet, flies away, sparkling everywhere. Tiny creatures play while making water ripples, turning dandelions.
Okay. Tell me what you think of it, guys.
Just want to, I'm going to send you the link again, but maybe it resonates with when we saw Blinkety Blank, Yeah, because we saw a very famous short animation from Norman McLaren. I don't know if you know Norman McLaren. And
No.
the describer, it's a woman's voice. She did the same thing. She was playing with the rhythm of her voice, and we found it really interesting. And so I'm super happy to see this piece too.
It'd be great if you could send me that. That'd be fantastic to see. So I guess what we're saying here is that she is no longer thinking of translation and an original, and she's transforming, right? The audio-described version becomes a transformation. It's something else. It's a new original, if you like. But she has found a way to convey things through feelings and through an experience. And so going back to the presentation that we had, I guess what we're saying here is here.
But I have a question here, Pablo.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
So I was watching the movie and with those creative subtitles, and I was wondering, is this a problem that it's drawing our attention to the captions instead of or you know,
it happens a lot. You know, when you use creative subtitles, you have to decide how much protagonism they need to take. Sometimes they're very protagonists, sometimes they're not. You have to decide that. But it's like with any other filmmaking tool, isn't it? You can draw attention to your editing, you can draw attention to the photography, you can draw more or less attention to some things. You have to decide along with the filmmaker what you want to do, you know? Sometimes they are really protagonists, like, let's see.
Well, in that movie.
Yeah, but can you see this now?
It's black.
Black, okay, just a sec.
Constitutional amendments are, or should be, hard to achieve. In America, it takes a 2/3 majority in both houses of Congress. It's easy to see why the bar is set so high. Unlike ordinary lawmaking, constitutional changes are for keeps. Voters are fickle, opinions change. We have no right to condemn future generations to abide irrevocably by the transient whims of the present. If ever a decision needed at least a 2/3 majority, it was Brexit. Brexit is permanent. It has huge ramifications, complex consequences.
Do you see? Here, subtitles are protagonists. They are a key part of how you deliver your message. But you can be creative in a different way. You can be creative in order to pass unnoticed as well. Because, you know, what some filmmakers are telling me sometimes is, why do I have to use this Arial font? You know, I don't want it. I want it to be a font that matches the film better. And when they say that, they mean that they create a typographical identity of the film that suits the film better, but not to draw attention, just to fit the style of the film. And they're creative because they're alternative because they're not abiding by guidelines, you know? So it's just that, you know, liberated from the shackles of guidelines and play with things, not only to be protagonists, but to be whatever you want it to be. Yeah. So I think that's part of the idea. In the clip that I showed you, obviously, and in this one, they're very protagonists, but it doesn't always have to be like that. So, okay.
Well, like in your movie, at some point, the subtitle are not in the bottom, they're next to Ian.
Yeah, and when I ask people, you see, when I ask viewers, sometimes they tell me, what do you mean by that? Like some of them didn't even really think about it too much, you know? I don't know, some of the people may notice, maybe, I mean, you guys are obviously not your usual viewer because you are into subtitling, but a lot of the people who are not into subtitling, when I asked them if they like the creative subtitles, they said, what creative? What do you mean? So, you know, for them, it's just subtitles, you know, so that's fine. I just wanted to be a little bit organic. I wanted to keep your eyes closer to Ian's face, for example, not to have to travel so much, you know, because it helps deaf people as well. You know, this is how a deaf filmmaker has made a film. Look at this. Just a sec. Yeah, here. Just a second. This is from Gallaudet University, which, as you know, in the States, it really does a lot about. It's a university for deaf people, so it's quite big into all these things. Just a sec. Is a silent film about the university made by a deaf filmmaker. You can see it now, right, Caroline?
Yeah.
Good. Look. So the subtitles are close to the faces because if you're a sign language speaker, the face gives you a lot of information, right?
Yeah.
So then why keep the subtitles away from the faces and making you, and then the subtitles could be covered just as a sound can sometimes be not heard properly, right?
Yeah.
You see? And if we go into a class, in the class they're reading this book, I can't see the title, so then you bring the title up. Then the teacher speaks, and I move around the teacher. So I see the back of the subtitles. And then if I want to see this girl signing, I want to see her face. So I want the subtitles to be close to her and moving as she signs, yeah?
Uh-huh.
So, it made sense for the deaf filmmaker to approach filmmaking like that, It doesn't always work, but it's just one more option, that may work for a lot of signing deaf people. But this is what happens when accessibility is done by someone who's not us. Yeah.
Because, and it's done at the beginning of the process.
Absolutely.
Because here I'm thinking about cost, when I'm seeing that of closed captioning, I'm like, well.
Of course. But that's because from the beginning, they thought about access, yeah? From the very beginning. And you know who thinks about access from the beginning? Well, disabled people, right? Because access is part of their lives.
Maybe
Sorry, what was that?
Maybe my students
yeah.
know that
Your students too, that's what we call, exactly, that's what we call accessible filmmaking. Can we start thinking about access from the word go, from the beginning? Because then things completely change, if we bring it at the beginning of the process. That's what we've been doing for a long time now with accessible filmmaking. But what we didn't know is what happens when you bring access at the beginning. When you bring it at the beginning, you start a collaboration between you guys and the filmmakers. And because filmmakers are creative people, then they start going beyond the guidelines. That's why we have alternative media access. So this class, I'm only talking about alternative media access, but normally when I teach a bit longer, first I teach accessible filmmaking and then alternative media access, because one is the consequence of the other. The first thing that we had to do 10 years ago, from 2013, was, can we consider access at the beginning? Let's have Maxon collaborating with filmmakers, not at the end. When that happens, then we follow them, and we created a database of 600 filmmakers who apply accessible filmmaking around the world. And what we've seen when looking at the work that they do is that then they start playing creatively with access. They know the guidelines, we tell them what they are, and then suddenly they say, oh yeah, but can I do something else, please? Of course, because that's what they do, right? Nice examples that I've seen, for example, is, well, I'll tell you about the key ring. And there's this other one in which there's a film about a couple who meet in a subway station in London, in the underground station, and he starts to flirt with her, and she's not interested, and little by little she's more and more interested, and you can see how the shot is becoming closer for them. At the beginning, they're very far away. The captions are underneath each of them, but as they become a little bit closer, and the camera gets closer to them, the subtitles are in the middle of them. So we create this closed space. And once we finished the film, the filmmaker said, what colors should I use for the people who are speaking, for these two, for the couple? And I gave him the colors that are normally used. And you know what he said? He said, why don't we warm the colors as they warm up to one another? Mm-hmm. So they were the same colors, but the colors were getting slightly warmer as they were getting closer, and back to cold as they departed. Now, I would have never thought of that, but he did, because he's a filmmaker. He thinks visually, and he came up with that, which is a great idea, because for the deaf person, you're not explaining how sound works because they cannot hear it. You're actually giving them a visual element that they can get because you're playing to their abilities as opposed to their disabilities. You're not compensating for the disability, you are enhancing their abilities or helping it, you know? So that's what I meant before. And it helps to transform whatever it is that we're working on. So back to where we were, let's see if I can go back to this. I guess what we were saying is, we're on here. It's access as, these disabled scholars define the type of access that is subjective, that is creative, that it focuses on engagement and not comprehension, that it doesn't always work. It's malleable. Does it work? No, then we change it, then we try something else. It's not fixed. It's very political, and it is very transformative as well. It's access as transformation, but also access intimacy. It's a very interesting term that Mia Mingus created, and I'll explain in a second. She says that access intimacy is, she doesn't define it properly, but she says, it's when I feel that someone gets this, that someone connects with me at an access level. And she says, this is important for us because accessibility, people who need access is not an external thing, it's a very private thing. If Caroline is not disabled and I go with her and I watch a film in the cinema, we are there, two people watching a film amongst other people, and we're not exposed. Nobody knows anything about us. But if I am a blind person and I go to a cinema and I wear audio description headphones, I'm already revealing to everyone else that I'm blind. And this is a private thing, isn't it? Maxim doesn't have to be there and reveal anything when he's watching a film, but as a blind person, I'm already saying I'm blind. I'm exposing myself in a way that other people are not. But sometimes the access that you get is not cold, it's warm, and it's intimate, and the person who provides it is exposing themselves as well, because they're not hiding behind guidelines, because they're deciding to make a film and say, look, you know what, I'm going to bring myself into this description, and I'm going to describe it myself, and I'm going to tell you that I struggled to make this film over 10 years. This is as best as I've been able to do it. Here I am. I'm exposed, you're exposed. Let's meet somewhere in between in this intimate scenario, this intimate access. Here we meet. And I may get it wrong, but it doesn't matter. This is what I'm trying to do as best as I can. I'm trying to connect with you and to give you something that is meaningful for you, And that's what I try to do with the film as well, So try to say, okay, I'm sure this can be done better. I'm sure I missed descriptions that I should have included. You know what I missed in the film that you watched, guys? There's not a single description of Ian. I forgot to describe him. You know what I mean? It's crazy. I didn't say that this is a, 60-year-old man with, I forgot because I didn't have the space. And then I wanted Ian to describe himself, but he was not available. And in the end, I said that to my viewers in New York who watched the film. And they said, well, you know what? Some of them did mind. Some others said, no, by the end of the film, I felt that I knew the guy much better than the outside of him. The outside of him almost doesn't matter because I know what matters to him, what he is enthusiastic and obsessive about. And I guess that's the idea. I'm building a portrait. But in that portrait that I built with him, I forgot to describe his physical attributes, whatever, I got it wrong. But that's why, I can change it next time or something, So I guess this brings us to this idea, to the film, to trying to, well, I don't know. It just felt odd. It just felt odd to have an external voice and to have a cold description, So that's what I try to do. Yeah, and we can discuss it if you want, or we can see what worked for you and what didn't.
Well, maybe I can start this conversation by asking you, you wrote the audio description after, before, in the middle?
Yeah, good question. So I did it with Luis Fraya, and for a long time, I thought about access from the beginning, obviously, because, I was doing accessible filmmaking, and but there are some constraints there. So I thought, when we interview Ian in his house, we leave some space for the captions there so that we take into account as we're filming. And there's all sorts of things that you have to deal with in terms of access when you're making the film. The camera, the director of photography, Martina, she is Austrian. She doesn't have Spanish. When we're interviewing Ian and he speaks Spanish, she doesn't know what he's saying. So how does she know if she needs to go into a close-up or not? She doesn't know, right? So I was having to listen to Ian, ask him questions, and then translate simultaneously to Martina, so that she knows what he's saying and she feels that it's important and she moves the camera accordingly, right? So those are the things that we were taking into account. And I was thinking, okay, leave some space for description here and there, but you're wearing so many hats as a filmmaker, as an organizer, and that you forget about access at some point. The filmmaker Sidney Lumet once said that being a film director is somewhere in between a poet and a traffic warden. And it's something like that. You're directing the traffic because you're organizing things and you're thinking about the poetry of your film, the art. But sometimes you are more of a traffic warden, more of a policeman, less of an artist. So you miss a lot of things, and I took it into account, but I only did the description at the end.
Okay, because I was thinking about how difficult it could be to think about, describing things when it's a documentary. So if it's a fiction, you can, you have a script and you know in advance what you're going to do, what people are going to say, even sometimes the music. But then you are doing a documentary, so there's a lot of improvisation, there's a lot of surprises.
Exactly. So you can plan some things, but others you cannot, and you let things happen. That's what Buñuel did, so you leave, can you just be there for a month until the goat falls? Or do you have to stage it? Do you have to actually bring the goat and shoot it and scare it and boo it so that it goes down? So as Ian says, is it's a docufiction, right? So some things you can plan, some others you cannot. When we show that Ian was about to fall when he was climbing, that never happened. We were just playing. What happened to us was that we were driving a van with a crew, and then we crashed into one of the walls of the monastery that we visited. So we took that sound and we put it in there, and we faked that there was a problem because we were playing with Buñuel and his docufiction. So some things you plan, other things just happen, and that's all. But I would have liked to provide access from the beginning, but then I thought it was impossible. I didn't get funding for the film, and when I talked to the distributor, they just wanted standard access. And actually, you know what they said? They said, oh, for all our films, we send them to this company, pay them €600, and this is what they said, and they send us, for all their films, they send us subtitles for the deaf that are also good for the blind. That's what they said. I couldn't believe it. And I said, what do you mean? Oh, yeah. We just pay €600 and they give us subtitles that are good for deaf and blind people, and that's that. And I said to them, but okay, have you ever tested them? No, normally we don't have blind people, so that's okay. Of course you haven't, unless he knows something that we all don't know. Subtitles couldn't really help for blind people, could they? So this is the extent to which they're disconnected from the world of access, you see. And so I had to just do it by myself and find voices and record them in a studio and cover all the cost. And then just because in New York, someone said, can we watch the film and screen it for blind people? And I didn't have it. So, I had to do all these things. But it was worth it because it was a lot of work, but it was worth it because, once I did it, I felt like, this is maybe it's even closer to what I meant in the film. Like, not the voiceover. I wouldn't have the voiceover, but blind people need it. I would have subtitles for that. But the commentary, I don't mind it, because I feel that the film is as much about what we show as it is about the journey that it took us all to make it. So sighted people who watch the film without audio description, they miss part of that journey.
Well,
so I think, yeah.
Because, we don't see you in the documentary. We don't hear you asking question. So I felt that this description was kind of, the voice of the director. And not most of the time, but there's a lot of documentaries when we hear the director talking, interviewing, being there. You were talking about talking at the past tense instead of just saying, well,
yeah. And it's in the past tense because I thought, if I have a problem that I didn't do the descriptions for the beginning, then at least can I make the most of the fact that it's late? If it's late, at least I have a perspective from 2023 now. And the film started 10 years ago, right? So then since I am in 2023 and that's a problem, if I can turn that into something that is not that bad, because now in 2023, I know more things, right? I look back at all these things. So maybe if you give that perspective, you give an experience that covers the whole arc of the journey that we did. So that was a little bit of the idea as well. So now that I think of it, I think, normally we try to give blind people what sighted people get, and we compensate for what they miss. The people who I think are missing now are sighted people. They're missing what blind people get. So, well, I don't have a problem with that. And as a matter of fact, if that was the case, maybe I would invite sighted people to watch the audio described version,
Well,
So
we had the audio described version.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you did.
But so your movie this is a little bit technical, but your movie is distributed or not?
It is, and for most English speaking viewers, for example, until now I show the film without a description, of course. So you would just see the film without my commentary, without a description of images, and with Ian's words in Spanish subtitled into English. That's it.
Why?
Right? Well, it's a good question, Caroline, because when the London Spanish Film Festival asked for the film, what I did was, okay, what do they need? They need access to translation, right? That's what they need. I asked if there were any blind or deaf people in the audience. They said no. So what I gave them was the Spanish film with subtitles into English. That was it.
Okay.
Right? Because I thought, why give them audio description if they don't need it? Right?
But still, it's not the same.
Sorry?
It's not the same movie.
It's not the same movie. No, we're transforming. I mean, at the time, it was the only movie I had, because I didn't have an audio described version. Now, I ask you, what is the movie now? I don't know. Which one is the movie? The one without audio description and commentary? The one with commentary? If I was to now say, for example, the next thing is where is it? Actually in Toronto next year. I'm going to have to show it. Is it Toronto? No, Vancouver, British Columbia University. Yeah. Vancouver?
Yes.
So what film should I show? The film without audio description and only the Spanish subtitle into English? Or the film with the audio description and the commentary? Or the film with the audio description, the commentary, and the voiceover, which is what you saw? I don't know. Which one is the film?
This is like Apocalypse Now. Like there's many versions of the same movie.
Yeah, except for that one is a masterpiece. But still, I guess the question is really, I don't know what the film is anymore. And I think you can choose depending on what message you want to send as well. So, okay, if I want to play it safe, then I just send the film as it was shown in English festivals, which was subtitles into English, and that's it. No description, no commentary, nothing. If I want to make a point, or if I believe that the film is better with my commentary, then I can add my commentary. That will go with description of images. So I'm forcing description of images on people who can already see the images. Well, that way I'm raising awareness about audio description, right? So I think it's a good message to send. What I wouldn't do maybe is add the voiceover, because maybe there's no point in adding it, and I only add it for people who really need it and cannot see the subtitles. So I'm thinking that one of the options that I do is that one. Take out the voiceover, leave the audio description and commentary, and show it like that.
Mm-hmm.
And now for deaf people, what can I do? Well, another option for deaf people would be to include my comments that are just commentary in between brackets. Yeah. So to use the brackets as the space in which I talk to people and I tell them about the journey. That's another option. But I have a question for you. And the question is, the person who was organizing the screening in New York said, I sent her the version that you saw, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she said, okay, that's fantastic. I really like it. The feedback was good by blind people. I can show you now. It was quite interesting to see. It was very emotional. I'm sharing this. This was the feedback. Some of the feedback that I got. The AD turned this film into a personal journey, and this alternative approach made me feel like I was part of the crew members following Ian. I love the film, and descriptions both felt intimate and personal. So that's the intimacy that we were talking about. You trusted more what was being said. That's interesting, because normally you think that objective description is what you trust. But because it comes without an author, then if you maybe it's easier to trust someone who's speaking from the heart. And I cannot imagine the film without a description, because it personalized the narrative, hearing a warm human who actually cared about the events and the story and who was part of the filmmaking rather than an outside voice or an AI robot, right? But the question is, before showing it in New York, I sent the film to the organizer, and the organizer said, but Pablo, what if I have deaf people in the audience? It's, this film is not accessible for them. So we asked, and there were no deaf people, so I didn't do anything about it. But then she asked me the question that I'm wondering now, which is, should I have a version that is accessible for everyone? Okay. Yeah. And this is the question to you. Consider it, please. As a filmmaker, if you were making this film, you have two options now. Leave it as it is, and then work on a separate version for deaf people, or make one version for everyone. I decided against the last one, about making one version for everyone, because of the following things. If the film that you showed, I want to make it accessible also for deaf people, then I have to subtitle my commentary, which is not a problem, but I have to subtitle the description of the images as well. And you know that eyes go down to the subtitles, whatever they are, they go down there. So I would be asking deaf people to read the description of an image that they can already be seeing, right? And they may miss the image because they're reading the description of the image. For me, that doesn't make sense. And for me, it's unfair, because a deaf person may tell me, well, it's great that your film is accessible to everyone, but the fact that I am deaf means that I am put together with the blind, with whom I have nothing else to do. What do I have to do with the blind people? Just as much as we do. And because we are disabled, then you bring us together and you give us a worse experience. Whereas, why don't you make a version for me then? Which I can, right? But this is not what the organizer did not agree with me on this. I'm a really good friend with her, but she said, no, I still think that making a version that is accessible makes more of a point, So I don't know. For my particular film, and I may get it wrong, I prefer to think of a deaf person and provide them with an experience, and blind people provide with an experience. And I don't want to provide them with a worse experience just because I make a film that is accessible to everyone.
But couldn't you
my point of view anyway.
caption not the description of the images and only the parts where you're talking?
The problem with that is that sometimes when I'm describing the images, I'm introducing comments within that sentence as well. Yeah. And you're describing it from your point of view. So the commentary and the descriptions are quite mixed, and it becomes quite difficult. And also one more thing. If they watch the audio described version and I don't describe it and I don't subtitle the description of the images, hard of hearing people are going to be kind of hearing a little bit about someone that's talking, and they don't know what's going on, and it's not going to be subtitled. So that's maybe a bit of a problem as well. I don't know. It's an ongoing debate that we have in accessible filmmaking. Are you making different versions? Are you making access for all or access for each? Access for all means one version for everyone, but it's never good for everyone. You cannot have access for everyone. Or you create different versions, but how many different versions? That's also tricky. There's no one way of doing it. There's no perfect way, but there are valid discussions. At least we're discussing access, and we are discussing it as integrated as possible.
Especially if
I don't know,
screening it in a theater, because if you're streaming it online, then you can just choose the version you want depending on your need or whatever. Okay. But if you're screening it, like you said, you ask, are there going to be any, blind people or not? Or,
exactly.
It's a bit more.
I don't know. I think, one thing is mainstream filmmaking and big budget films and stuff. But if you are, a nobody like I am in the world of film, then you make your film. If I spend 10 years making a film, can I not spend a few months working on different accessible versions? I can do that. It's not a problem. And I can have a few versions and work on them. I'm not the only one doing that. Look, Kinetic. Let me see. I'm going to show you something that is really interesting. These guys. Yeah. Okay. So have a look at this and follow it if you want, if you can. These are people who make art out of. It's like artistic exhibitions on wheelchairs. You see this email now from my friend in New York, and she says, have a look at this, kinetic light. Look, they have a play, and these are the options that they have. Single track audio description plus American Sign Language, poetic audio description plus American Sign Language, multi-track audio description plus sign language and closed captions. And so it goes, you know, and they have like, you know, different ways. I don't know, are you still seeing the screen? The Vimeo screen?
Mm-hmm.
So, and, you know, you have
a lot of people worked on that.
a quiet cascading dissonance. You see, I mean, these are not normal captions. They're captions that are, every word is being looked after, you know. The poetic description, same thing. Did you hear a sound? Shh. You know what that was? That is called the rational method or audio description. Have you heard about that?
The rational what?
Method. It's somebody developed it for breakdancing. How do you describe a breakdancing type of dance? You can describe the movements, but you can agree with the viewers on sounds. If you move like this, then the sound is going to be shh, 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 right? So the description may just be shh, shh, you know, and we know what we mean by that. And you get it through your sound. You get it through you get it through senses, not through an explanation. So they're using that as well, you know. So these are people who are playing artistically with images, with sound, and with access, you know. And then maybe they don't mind having different versions. I mean, Coppola was asked to provide different versions for the original version of Apocalypse Now. Why not do the same thing for accessible versions too? You know, money is an option. Yeah, money is a problem. Yes, but I don't know. I mean, I didn't have money to pay for my audio description. Well, I found something. I have my savings, whatever. You played it. If you think it matters, then you do it. Plus, it's not so difficult to find money for access if you start from the beginning, because this is, you know, there are a lot of associations that are willing to provide funding for a social cause, you know. So it's just when it happens later, then it doesn't work so well. Yeah.
Avez-vous des questions, des commentaires sur le film?
Non. Moi, je crois que même pour les personnes qui entendaient, qui voient, c'est intéressant de voir un commentaire en plus de sa part. Comme par exemple toute la partie sur le fait que le film avait été volé.
Mm-hmm.
Ouais, donc je pense que... Après, oui, c'est sûr que la partie où il parle par-dessus la traduction de l'espagnol, c'est pas forcément nécessaire si on peut lire les sous-titres. Mais après, tout le reste, je trouve que ça ajoute quelque chose au film. Je pense qu'ils peuvent pas le garder.
Mm. So Maxence is saying that you should keep the version with your AD because your comments are really adding something to the movie and to our understanding of the whole process and the fact that you've been your computer was stolen, and it really gives something to the movie.
Maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. Maybe, you know, because when we were making the film, we thought, should we have a narration? And can I narrate it or somebody else? And I thought at the beginning, that's a cop-out. In English, a cop-out is like, that's making things too easy, you know, because people cannot make sense of your film, then you explain it. And I thought, no, let's go the difficult way. Let's make it make sense without a narration. And I tried to do that. And I did it. But then with the audio description, I started narrating and I thought, oh, maybe Mark Tang is right. Maybe the film should have had maybe the film was not finished until I made this accessible version. You see what I mean? Which is very interesting because there's this philosopher, right, Derrida, who used to say, a work of art is not finished until it is translated. This puts translation in a different level. It's not just a second-rate option. It's not just a compensation. No. It's like you make something and it's unfinished and you only finish it when you add the translation. That's the work. So maybe the film wasn't finished and it's finished now. Maybe, who knows, you know? I'm thinking of filmmaking as a garden. You know, you have a plant and you have a garden and you water it and it grows and it grows and it grows. When do you take out the plant? I don't know. You know, it took me 10 years and for 10 years I was trying to get this film done, finished, right? for 10 years. And now that it's finished, I don't want to let it go because it's been part of my life for longer than my children. You know, my children are 4 and 7. The film is 10 years old, right? And now you just let it go, right? And you're thinking, hey, I can still work on it. I can still make it better. No, you have to let it go now. Maybe that is the time to let it go.
Like a PhD thesis.
Exactly. You can always improve it. You can always, but who's to say? Maybe film is an ongoing endeavor. You know what I mean? Maybe that's how I see it. And Access contributes to that growing. And at some point you have to finish it. Although my next film is never going to finish. That's because I like this idea. Then I thought I'm going to make a never-ending film, and that's so. I can tell you but when we finish this, I can tell you the idea, and you can participate. But yeah, I do see film as something that never quite ends. Because if there's not an original version, then when does it finish? You know, there's not a beginning. There's not a, so it just goes on. You know, yeah, and it can be seen in different ways. And just one little element. If we, this is what Josh Branson, a PhD student, said. He said, let me think about how he phrased it. He said, if we are obsessed with the original and all we do is try to portray the original, what we're telling disabled people or people who need access is that, okay, I'm going to give you the audio scribe version, but really, wouldn't you want, if you could, wouldn't you want to access the original? You know, wouldn't that be better? That's what we're telling them, right? Which is a way of telling them, wouldn't you rather be normal? Wouldn't you rather be sighted? You see what I mean? That's what bothers me about that, is that's the message that we're sending. But if we care about the audio described version, if we care about the subtitle version, like an original, then we're not telling them, would you rather be normal? No, we're telling them, here's a film for you. You know, that's it. And you know what? You're not missing anything in the original because it's worse. Maybe even worse. I don't know. So yeah, I'm more at ease with this idea. I think so.
You want to add something? Yeah.
Right. So you said that you think that the audio description would be like annoying or useless to the people that are sighted and can hear, but I think that it helps focus your attention on what is happening or on little things that we wouldn't see. Like, for example, there is a point where the camera was going through a road, and then in the audio description you said, genre, that's French. You said it was a full moon, and I think maybe we wouldn't have just known because we would be focused on the movement of the camera.
Absolutely, Maxine. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I have this little complex that I'm thinking, oh no, I don't want to force access upon people. I don't want people to be bored. I don't want people to be told what to, but you're right, because, we focus their attention on what we want them to focus their attention. And is that a bad thing? Well, no, that's what filmmakers do anyway, right? They play with your eyes and they focus, with the camera and that kind of thing. They change the focus and they are directing your attention. So I'm doing the same thing with another tool, with audio description. So maybe it's not a problem. And you know what? I can manage to give you information that I wanted to give and I couldn't. Ian is not walking on any road at the end of the film. He's walking on the road that Lorca went through by car when they killed him, right? So they took Lorca across 2 minutes by car, and now Ian is walking that very slowly, and it's taking him ages, because it's taken ages to find Lorca, and he hasn't yet. But how do we know that road is the same road? I can put it in some text on screen, but it didn't look too good. In audio description, I can say it. And I can also tell you that Father Angel, the priest, died during those 10 years, And if not, I would have put it in the credits. Maybe you stand up and you leave the cinema before you read that in the credits. And I can actually manage to be grateful to the people who worked in the film in the credits and to talk about them, not just to send a list of names and stuff. So I agree with you, yeah. And you know what, Maxine, I think maybe my task is to show the film from now on with audio description, because in a way it would also help people know what audio description is and make them interested in this, because otherwise we just remain in this little corner where nobody knows us.
Well, I think you shouldn't be too worried about showing the AD version, because one thing that we did at the beginning of this course was to actually watch a TV show, well, actually a series with the AD, and then I asked the students, how do you feel about it? Does it bother you? Do you want me to just turn it off?
But Caroline, come on, you're cheating. You're cheating because your students are interested in access. Come on. If they were... No?
No, not really. So there was maybe some confusion because the students I have with me right now, they did not
okay.
courses. So they knew very little at the beginning. And well, they all said that at some point, they didn't even, notice that it was this.
Brilliant.
And am I right? Yeah, I'm saying the truth. Okay. And the only thing that I discover myself hearing a lot of described content is that when it's not well done, it bothers you. If the voice is an AI voice, if it's too fast, if the tone of the voice doesn't fit with the content, or if the description is really bad in many ways, then it bothers me. But if it's well done, and it could mean a lot of things, a well done 80, depends on what you're looking for. But I think we all agree that at some point it feels natural and you don't mind anymore. On the contrary, sometimes.
Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah, I should do that. I needed this encouragement. Thank you, guys. I'm gonna show it with audio description. Then, no, I think it's in a way it's our task. Where, I mean, we have a duty, right? Sometimes when I show films that have a powerful message about, by a deaf filmmaker, and it has created subtitles, sometimes I feel a little bit odd. Why should I be discussing the subtitles of this video when they are not the most important thing? The most important thing is the message. And here I am talking about the displacement of the subtitles. And I said to my PhD student, Kate Dangerfield, who's a brilliant filmmaker, and I said to her, it's almost like I was discussing the shoes that the soldier is wearing when going to war, instead of describing the war and the battle and everything. And she was saying, yes, but does the soldier not need the shoes? Right? We need the shoes, right? They're an important part. They're there. So this is our point of entry. We go in through here. We go into this battle, into this issue, through subtitles, through audio description. That's this little corner. If we decided we're not going to treat this corner as a small technique, but as a door to something else, then this is a valid point of entry. And now, let's be aware that we're dealing with a bigger thing. And I'm saying this to me, not to you. I'm saying this. Pablo, remind yourself of the fact that, make a point of audio description. Make a point of it. So don't be a coward and show your film with audio description. If they don't like it, that's fine. But at least they've been exposed to it. So I agree.
Yeah. Always say that this is the only version you have, and it's an inclusive version, not explaining exactly.
Exactly. This has been very good. Very instead of a class, it's just a therapy for me. Very useful. Yeah.
Any comments or questions? Go ahead.
No. I have two small comments, if you don't mind me keeping talking. So still about the audio description, because I really, really loved the movie, and I loved your description because, first of all, it's not standard, so like you don't get bored of it, because it's not like you're just listening to someone describe what is happening in front of you. It's more like you're listening to the director talking about what he created, and it has like more of an intimate thing than just someone that has no connection to the movie. And also I think the audio description, when you watch a movie, you can just tune it out. So you can, if it's bothering you, you can just tune out what you're hearing. It's a lot easier. So I think it's a better option to have the audio description and just tune out if it's bothering you, than just not have it and not being able to follow what's happening in front of you if you're disabled. And I think, like, as a person that has a lot of problem of concentrating, it helps just if I zone out for a bit and then come back to the movie, it helps me know what's happening, like just as a following thread. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, just like,
that's very interesting. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that thing about the focusing of the attention, because I'm super interested in young generations. I'm 42, so I've spent half of my life in the 20th century and the other half in the 21st century. But I'm teaching people who have spent the whole lives in the 21st century. And the films that I've made so far, this one and Joining the Dots about Trevor, the blind person, they're all about 20th century people, about people who are really lived in the 20th century, who work on the 20th century. And I can see differences there, and this I will link with the next project that I'll tell you about, because how old are you guys, if you don't mind me asking? The students. Between what and what?
I'm 28.
Between
24.
20, 24, 28.
That's exactly
20.
right. So even if you're 28, you've spent most of your life in the 21st century. So in the 21st century. So what I mean by this is, in Spain, most of our students have the same age. In a year, we don't have kind of mature students or anything. It's just, for me, they're all 21, right? And yeah, they're all 21, honestly, because it's third year at university. They're all 21. The following year, I teach third year again, and they're all 21, right? But I'm 1 year older. So I'm moving away from them. I'm 42, 43, 44, and they're always 21, a bigger gap. There's a risk of not connecting with them. And this year I've tried to connect with them, because most of my colleagues at uni are 60. And in a way, they almost give up on connecting with young people. And then stereotypes come in. Oh, they are not as hardworking as we used to be. They are the, what do you call it? Flake generation, snowflake generation. They are not constant. They are not focusing on things. They are looking at 1,000 screens at once. And so this thing that you're saying about, focusing attention, maybe is interesting as well. But I'll carry on now with a little explanation. This year I thought, okay, I want to connect with these people. I want to know a little bit more of what it's like, the 21st century. So I asked them to give me, just because I teach them interpreting and I give them speeches and they interpret, but I asked them this time to give me, write down your three major life goals. And I picked it up and I read it, and they were very, very interesting. And I thought, wow, can I make a little film about this? So I watched this documentary that I recommend, and it's called 7 Up. Now, a guy called Michael Apted, a filmmaker in the UK, did this amazing experiment. He brought together 14 7-year-olds in 1964. They were in London, but they were coming from different social classes. And he interviewed them, took them to a zoo and filmed them together. And that's it. And 7 years later, he came back to them when they were 14, and he interviewed them again, and he brought them together again. Now, the premise of the film is the following. Give me a 7-year-old, and I'll give you the adult. Yeah? And what he did is, every 7 years, he went back to them, interviewed them, and he allowed us to see who they were, what they were doing. So as a British viewer, as a citizen, you would sit in front of your TV every 7 years, only every 7 years, to watch these people grow. And 7 years, I mean, he made a film when they were 7, and another one when they were 14, 21, 28, 35, 42, 49. You carry on until 63.
Wow.
So we saw them become, old people. We saw them, how they were, going through adulthood, through everything. And some of them died. The filmmaker died after that. But we captured them until they were 63, right? And when they were 63, many of them watched their 7-year-old selves, and they could recognize themselves in their 7-year-olds. They could see, oh yeah, this part of me was already there. I was sent to a school. I didn't have parents, and look at how everything went on. I didn't have parents with me at all. Then I had this relationship, and in a way, my wife is saying in this interview that she became a little bit of a mother to him as well. There's all sorts of issues that you understand life a little bit better when you see what it all comes from. So my project, it's called 21. And what I'm doing is I'm asking my 21-year-old students, who are 21 as well, who send me 3 videos, or one video of themselves. I'm not filming them. They film themselves because they have cameras, right? Phones. So they send me a video where they answer questions about the present, the past, and the future. About the present, they just tell me where they are in their lives, what are they enthusiastic about, and what they fear. Then they talk to their 17-year-old. I'm interested in 21-year-olds because they're about to choose where they go in terms of work, right? What they do in their lives. They have some freedom, really. I don't. I'm 41. I have children. I'm not going to, like, they have a baggage with me, right? It's not easy. But when you're 21, you can choose. They answer those questions about the present. They look back at when they were 17 and they were about to decide what to study. And they give an advice to their 17-year-old. What would you advise that 17-year-old? And then they look at their 25-year-old selves, that hasn't happened yet, who's already working, and they say, what would you like to be? Where do you think you will be, right? And along with that, with this video, they send me 5 pictures, recent pictures from their mobile phones that they can show. 5 recent pictures. Yeah. And I'm gathering this from my 21-year-old students this year. And I'll be gathering it from my 21-year-old students next year, and next year, and next year, and 5 years. And in 5 years' time, I will contact the first ones and send them the videos and say, can you do a video now for your present now, your past, and your future, right? I am 42, so I can only track them for maybe 20 more years. So those 21-year-olds, I'll catch them until they're my age now. So maybe they'll have a family and children or not. The 17-year-olds will be almost my age. And I'm filming 7-year-olds at schools as well, my son's age, because I want to ask them about their futures, right? Now, because many of my colleagues are teaching at university, I'm beginning to ask young people from all over the world, from their classes, to send me the same videos, right? Now, I know it's a private thing. A lot of people don't want to, that's fine. But if any of you were willing to do that, I can send you the instructions. What is that going to turn into? I don't know. Maybe in 5 years' time, I'll have the film is 21, but maybe I'll stop there and I'll bring together many of those videos and show something, a snippet of it. Maybe it's a 21 Galicia, where I'm from. Maybe it's a Spain. Maybe it's focusing on 20 people, maybe focusing on 30. I have no idea. But, it's just, what is going to be the original version of the film? I have no idea. There's not going to be one. There's going to be so many. It's a garden that's going to grow until I die, really. Yeah. And I can stop every year and make something of it or make something different. I don't know. It's just a never-ending garden. Will turn into a forest and a messy field, whatever. But my hope is that I can show a snapshot of what life for 21st century people is like. What does Maxim have in common with my 21-year-old, my 23-year-old student in Spain? Do they have anything in common or not? That kind of thing. And the way you are now, does that have any bearing on where you will be in the future? Is that in any way connected to who you were and the choices that you made in the past? So that's the idea. And Caroline, we need to make it accessible from the beginning, yeah?
We are.
We need to think about access from the beginning. So anyway, so if that's okay, I can send you a little description of it. And if anybody wants to take part, then that'll be fantastic.
I will share it with my students, of course.
Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Oh, no, thanks to you. Any question for Pablo? Okay, Maxence has another commentary.
Yeah, Maxence, I'll be expecting a video from you, man.
Tu parles de sujets que j'aime bien, mais because I want to bounce back on what you said about the generation thing and everything goes very fast. It's because our generation, Gen Z, it's like a common thing that people say that we're a generation where everything goes very fast because we're used to like social medias where we scroll and for every videos is going to be like 15 seconds. So we get bored when it's like just like if it's just a minute, we get bored of that. So there's a booming of people, for example, diagnosed with ADHD and problems of etc. And you see more and more videos on the internet that have like subtitles to to catch the attention of the viewer, but also to be more accessible because, as you said, people call us the snowflake generation because we're supposedly more sensitive to everything, but that's also a great asset because it means that we're more open to inclusivity. To being inclusive. Yeah, just.
But that's a brilliant. But there's a tricky aspect to that. Okay, let's go into that for the last minute. Yeah, Agreed. So, the past was always better. That's what old people tend to think. That's what we tend to think. Oh, yeah, come on, rock bands were better before. The music was better before. What's this reggaeton in Spain, all over the Latin country? Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, fine. Well, I do have to say, from my point of view, I like the music that I listened to when I was young better than, but hey, that's my view, right? Even yesterday, I went to a Guns N' Roses concert here in Vigo. Imagine how old I am. I have to say that the singer is not what he used to be, but I was there and I was thinking, God, this was music. And then I thought, oh, what an old person's comment, But anyway, yes, but there are very good things about it, as you say, sensitive, yes, but you also, I mean, yeah. Can we really believe that I didn't have any gay people in my class? No, they just didn't dare say it. There were no depressed people in my class. No, you just wouldn't say it. All these things are different now, So there are better things and worse things, and yeah. Now, access. You guys are more access aware. You're more diversity aware. That's for sure. And access works for all. So subtitles work for all, and most social media videos are sometimes played mute because you cannot. So then you add the subtitles by default. That is a universalistic approach to access. Access concerns all, and that's a good thing. Yeah, we are happy with that. But are we? And this is my last question. Sometimes the idea of access for all and the idea that access is consumed by deaf and non-deaf people, subtitles are, is a good thing because, when I went to Netflix to push for access, I didn't have it. I said, sometimes companies don't want to pay for that because, it's only for a few deaf people. But if you justify that a lot of people are using it and they're not deaf, then it's a majority, then you get it, right? So that's a good thing. But let me tell you about the bad thing about it. Some disability scholars, people say, I have it somewhere here. She says, she says, when access becomes access for all, which is a good thing, there's a risk of it prioritizing the needs of the majority, and the majority are non-disabled. And then the ones who are left behind are always the same. An example, live subtitles. Yeah, live subtitles are now, you said you're training re-speakers, and that's fine. But what we're seeing now with ChatGPT's software that is called Whisper, and it's a subtitling, automatic subtitling, is that it's so accurate in English to English and Spanish to Spanish subtitling. So accurate that is better than my students when I train them for live. So first I have to think about whether I want to train more re-speakers if I send them to a place where the machine may be better, or I have to tell them, what do you want to do? Because, many companies will choose automatic subtitles. But you see, I'm speaking now, and I'm speaking really fast. Blah, 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 blah. If the machine captures me, it will subtitle me verbatim, every single word, very fast. This will be acceptable for a lot of people because most people who consume subtitles are hearing and they can read fast. But those people who are deaf and they're sign language users, they may need subtitles that are edited. So those people are not going to be served properly by automatic subtitles. But automatic subtitles are used because they are access for all. You see what I mean? But this is what LSSR is saying. Access for all is great. The fact that hearing people need access is great. But please be aware that access is not ultimately done for the majority of people who don't need access in the same way. I'm sorry, but I am not, a lot of people say, oh, I'm just like a deaf person. I'm looking at the screen. I have no sound. Yeah, I need access. I'm not a deaf person. I'm not in the same boat. I need access now. But as soon as I come out of my bus or whatever it is that I am not discriminated against. I can hear everything. So let's not minimize the lived experience of disability. So access for all is great, but sometimes we have to think about access for each as well and who is left behind. And I finished with 3 questions that my student, Kay Dangerfield, posed at the end of her thesis, which have stuck into my mind. They are, first one, who is left behind? Right, you guys have this task. Keep thinking, who is left behind? Second, who gets to make? Who gets to create? Who gets to make things? Because this is a world made by non-disabled people for non-disabled people. So who gets to make? And the third question is, what is your position in all of this? What is your position? What are you going to do about it? Maybe you can do nothing. Maybe you don't want to do anything. Maybe you want to, what are you doing? What is your position here? Are you an ally? Are you don't want to be engaged? Are you, what are you? And I ask these questions to me now, to my other questions that we were asking about my film, and I get to say, who's excluded? Well, if deaf people are excluded, I will make that version for them. Who's excluded from my film? Cognitively disabled people. They're excluded. I need to get on top of that. Third, who gets to make? It was me. It was not blind people. It was not deaf people. It was, I only got them as consultants, but I should have got them more involved. Third question, where do I stand in all this? God knows where I stand. I don't know. I keep changing, because this is a journey. And it's a journey. You see things in a different way. Access for me, it was a technique, and I was a trainer, but now it's become a way of thinking and a way of being in the world. That's how I see access. A way of maybe trying to transform the world. I don't want to force this idea on you, but it is possible that access could be as wide as that, So I don't want to, access is part of what I am and part of what I fail, part of what I succeed in, part of everything. So that's why I put my camera on, and why I cannot stand teaching online classes about access, about this access, when people don't show their faces, it's like, because we are, this is part of who we are, right? It's part of, it's part of what we say, oh God, I see this commercial and I didn't see the trampa, the cheating, there and all these things. It's a way of thinking, a way of being. Yes.
I'm looking for another comment. Any other comment? No? Pablo, this was really, really interesting and really mind-opening, because we didn't talk that much about, first, we didn't talk that much about subtitling, and we didn't talk that much about how we could rethink our position, and it was a part of what I was really trying to, tap into my students' mind, like really rethink our position as creators. And I mean, it's really appealing to us, to my students, to think about AD and probably subtitling through a creative way, because I mean, we are in film studies here, so everybody's really creative. And thank you very much for all the examples that you showed us.
It's okay. Look, Caroline, I mean, for me, I wrote this little article with Kate Dangerfield. I sent it to you, Access as Conversation. And what we're saying there is precisely that it should be a two-way thing, It should be us providing access for deaf and blind people, but then them providing access to us, to their world as well. You know what I mean? Because we don't know it. A deaf person told me the other day, come on, I cannot acquire hearing, but you can learn sign language. You see? And I thought, shit, he's right. And I'm not doing it. So this should be a two-way thing. And this class for me has been a two-way thing. First, what I'm telling you is something that, you said eye-opening. Yeah, well, it's been eye-opening for me when somebody told me about this as well. And second, this has not just been me learning, teaching you, but I've also learned about, how other people think, see the film, what I should do. This therapy session has been useful for me too. So I think that's the way we should approach access, as a conversation. So thank you too.
Well, thank you for joining.
And Caroline, one more thing. It's an amazing thing that you're doing there. It really is, because honestly, it's very, very special. The other access training that is provided is so translation based that is very constrained, and the fact that you come in from there, so please don't think that, oh, we're just experimenting something. No, it's very big. It's very important. I will be sure to explain what you do in other areas and in conference and stuff, because it's extremely innovative and pioneering. And I want to impress that upon you guys, the students as well, because you come from a background that most people don't come from when they work in access. So use that open mind as well. Because you have so much to give, because most people don't come from that mindset. So it's a very special setting and scenario that you have there.
Well, I'm sure we will have, the occasion of talk again, Pablo, because
of course, Caroline.
At the lab where I work, we're really moving forward with description, subtitling. So we will meet in person at some point.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I'll send you the link to the recording, if at some point I would like to maybe show a part of it,
Yeah. Go for it.
With it, but it's yours. And well, you can send us this project for the students.
I will do. Thank you.
Probably participate. So happy birthday to your daughter.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Have a good night, and we'll talk soon. Thank you, Pablo.
Okay. Bye. Thanks a lot, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Salut. Merci, Caroline, de l'invitation.
De rien, Claudette. Je pense que tu as dû être très, très intéressée par la conférence.
Oui, c'est passionnant. On s'en reparle.
On s'en reparle très bientôt.
Bonne fin de session, tout le monde. Salut.
Ouais.